The screams had lasted 5 days before finally fading into silence. A new day dawned over the Goblin carpentry workshop, another day filled with dread and frantic labor. In the corner of the workshop stood Li Meng, his gaze cold and unyielding. A long whip dangled from his hand. The goblins trembled as they carved and chiseled the wooden pieces before them. Knives scraped against the grain, while fearful glances darted toward the unmoving figure in the shadows. Too thin. The sleepers need to be 2 fingers thicker. Li Meng's voice cut through the tension like a blade. With a crack, the whip lashed out from over 10 meters away, striking a goblin squarely across the back. Ah! The goblin shrieked, dropping his tool in agony. Boss, I'm sorry. I understand now. The whip hissed through the air again. Snap! Another goblin howled, clutching a half-carved bough. The bough's too thin. If you keep shaving it like that, it'll disappear. Nearby, Goblin, the leader of the goblin workers, watched with thinly veiled amusement until the whip cracked again. Snap! This time, it landed on his own back. Ack! Goblin stumbled backward, his expression turning from smugness to panic. You're their leader, Li Meng said coldly, walking forward. You should be guiding them, not standing by, enjoying their punishment. Another whip stroke landed on Goblin. Boss, please stop. Goblin yelped, stumbling forward in a clumsy attempt to look busy. Li Meng scanned the room, eyes sharp, then gave a twisted smile. After 5 days of brutal training, he'd learned something important. Goblins were excellent mimics, but they were also lazy and perfunctory by nature. To force knowledge into them, pain had to be the teacher. Get back to work. I'll inspect your progress later, Li Meng warned. Goblin, if you fail again, you won't enjoy the consequences. The glare that followed made Goblin's legs wobble. Why, yes, boss. It won't happen again. With a grunt, Li Meng tossed the whip aside and turned on his heel, leaving the workshop behind. As soon as he was gone, Goblin exhaled loudly, wincing as he touched his bruised back. What are you staring at? Get to work, he snarled. Snatching up the boss's discarded whip, he stormed toward the closest goblin and struck him with a vengeance. This is your fault. Because of you lot, I got whipped. The air filled once more with yelps of pain and Goblin's furious shouting. Beyond the workshop, Li Meng returned to the throne cave. Outside its entrance lay piles of clay, bamboo buckets filled with water, and bundles of green leaves and branches. You, come help. At his call, for goblins guarding the entrance scrambled over. Li Meng set to work. For the next several hours, he moved clay and supplies into the cave, busying himself with a new task. By afternoon, the female lizard men had arrived. They stood watching him from a distance, puzzled by his focused activity. Li Meng didn't spare them a glance. With practiced precision, he shaped the clay into miniature mountains, occasionally glancing at a map etched on a wooden board nearby. Branches became forests, pebbles turned into stones, and grass was added as terrain. Time passed. On the 3rd day, Bai Ling finally pieced it together. Master, you're making a map? She whispered. She stared at the detailed sandbox spreading across the floor. 10 square meters of meticulous craftsmanship. Every peak, every forest, every feature was stunningly lifelike. This goblin, he's not normal. His intelligence defied everything she knew about his kind. Yes, Li Meng said without pausing, it's a sandbox map. Clay for terrain, leaves for forests, twigs for rivers and huts. Even the crags and boulders of the mountains were carved to near perfection. Other lizard women gathered around, eyes wide with curiosity. Master, is this the northern swamp? Hui Nana asked hesitantly, pointing at a muddy section of the map where a tiny thatched hut sat. Hui Nana, Bai Ling chided, he doesn't understand our language. Goblin mouths struggled with the swamp tongue, and they'd never shown signs of comprehension before. Hui Nana blinked in confusion. Then the master answered, Yes, that's the northern swamp. Bai Ling's expression froze. He understands us. High priest, Hui Nana said innocently, the master often talks with us. Didn't you know? The others nodded. He communicates during mating, One added. This can't be, Bai Ling muttered. Do you understand Goblin speech? They shook their heads. No, but we always know what the master means. Bai Ling felt a jolt in her mind. Could it be he has a telepathic gift like me? Then a new voice echoed through the chamber. A voice that wasn't Goblin, wasn't Lizard Man, but everyone understood it. Clever Goblin indeed. All eyes turned to the cave entrance. A figure cloaked in black stood there, face obscured, aura unreadable. You came fast, Li Meng said without looking. He already knew who it was. God's apostle, holy, level 1, strength 1, defense 1, agility 1, magic 1, holy magic. Li Meng's brow furrowed slightly. Judging by the silhouette, the figure was likely human or something very close. Yet once again, the system failed to register any power. What exactly is going on with the humans in this world? Why can't their The black robe stood before Li Meng, cloaked in mystery and veiled power. Li Meng narrowed his eyes. There was no doubt now. The figure was holding back, concealing strength that went beyond what the system could read. A chill crawled up his spine. Had his curiosity just invited death? Who are you? Li Meng asked sharply, voice low and guarded. The figure placed a hand over his chest in a polite gesture, his tone smooth, deliberate. You don't need to know my name, the black robe said. Only that I am a friend, and I bring you power. Friend, Li Meng scoffed, lips curling to reveal his sharp, goblin teeth. We goblins have no friends. But the black robe remained unbothered, posture straight and composed. Friendship is a trivial matter. What matters is this. Through me, you will gain the power to summon a god. He extended a pale hand from beneath the robe, revealing a silver disc, no more than 3 centimeters wide. Though small, it pulsed with an aura that made Li Meng's instincts tingle. Something ancient, something divine. Offer your faith. Call upon the gods, the black robe instructed, and they will answer. Before Li Meng could respond, the black robe vanished. No sound, no warning, just a shimmer, and he was gone. The silver disc clattered to the floor where he'd stood. Li Meng's eyes narrowed. A trick. He could still sense the man's presence, lurking nearby, watching. It was magic, no doubt. Some illusion or concealment technique. For now, Li Meng played along. Marvelous, he exclaimed, rushing to the doorway and scooping up the disc like a child discovering treasure. He held it aloft, spinning with glee, eyes sparkling. Behind him, the female lizard men exchanged glances, uncertain. Bai Ling watched their master carefully, her stomach twisting. Something about the black robe's sudden appearance, and the object he left behind, unnerved her. Then, without warning, Li Meng's expression shifted. The playfulness vanished. His hand clenched around the disc. Crack! The sound of metal groaning under pressure echoed through the room as Li Meng crushed the disc into a mangled lump of silver. With a flick of his wrist, he tossed it out the window like trash. Then he returned to his map sandbox without a word, crouching down to resume his work. The lizard men stared, bewildered. Moments ago, he had been thrilled to receive it. Why destroy it so suddenly? Only Bai Ling seemed to grasp something deeper. Her eyes trembled with fear. This goblin, this big goblin, was terrifying. Such control, such intelligence. Bai Ling clenched her hands tightly. Could they ever hope to defy him? Crouched beside his miniature terrain, Li Meng shaped a clay hill thoughtfully. The Black Mountain tribe, their summoning of the barbarian god, is the real problem. The adventurer team? No concern. As long as no goblins provoke them, they'd eventually leave. They were here for the airship crash, nothing more. As long as Goblin stayed hidden, they wouldn't connect anything back to the goblins. But the Black Mountain tribe, that future couldn't be ignored. Avoiding a large-scale war is essential, he thought. Fortunately, the Black Mountain tribe was far to the west. If they were closer, the Lizardman army wouldn't have taken an entire year to cross to the northern swamp. For now, there was no immediate conflict, just the looming threat. His eyes flicked toward Bai Ling, who had returned to her bed. In the simulated future, she'd been abducted during the Black Mountain retreat. That meant she had value, possibly sacred value, among the swamp lizard men. He noted it. Days passed. The strange visit from the Black Robe became just another ripple in the tribe's growth. Li Meng immersed himself in completing the map sandbox. By afternoon of a new day, the throne cave was empty except for him and a few goblins still tidying up. Earlier, Bai Ling had taken the female lizardmen to the Iron Cave, a daily routine. Li Meng stood up and stretched. His gaze swept across the nearly completed sandbox. Good. It's ready. He turned to the goblins nearby. Fetch all the goblin warriors and goblin soldiers from the tribe. Now, the elite goblins had remained in the nest to focus on reproduction for the past few months. Their offspring already numbered over 1,000. Including the young, the tribe's population had grown to nearly 3,000. I'll go, boss, one goblin shouted, sprinting off. The rest of you, clean up the junk in here. Toss it out. The goblins hurried to obey. 10 minutes later, heavy footfalls echoed from outside the wooden hall. The warriors had arrived. Massive, muscular goblins entered in formation, led by Gobu D and the others. Boss, you called for us. Gobu D approached eagerly, flashing a toothy grin. Stop. Don't move. Li Meng's voice snapped like a whip. Gobu D froze mid-step. Only then did he look down and realize he had nearly stepped on the sandbox. Li Meng's glare was sharp. Watch your feet. That's the battlefield. The goblins looked down in awe, finally noticing the detailed terrain spread out before them. Gather around. But not a single toe on the clay. The goblins carefully shuffled around the edge of the map, wide-eyed and curious. Li Meng surveyed them. The throne cave now filled with 2 goblin warriors and over 30 goblin soldiers. It was getting cramped. Gobu D, Gobu Sure, I have a mission for you. Their eyes lit up. They had been cooped up too long. Action was exactly what they craved. This, Li Meng pointed with a stick to the clay river winding through the map, is Goblin River, the one flowing to the south. He moved the stick toward a cluster of tiny wooden huts sculpted into a forest clearing. Gobu D, tell me, what does this represent? Gobu D scratched his head, squinting. Boss, is it this place? He pointed uncertainly. A smile tugged at Li Meng's lips. Very good. You're learning. Gobu D beamed with pride. Beside him, Gobu Sure scowled, stepping forward quickly to point at a mountain near the tribe's position. A clay cave sat at its base, ringed by a painted forest. Li Meng watched them, amused. Good. They're learning faster than expected, and they would need that knowledge soon, because war, whether they wanted it or not, was coming.
Hey, welcome to Firescale Audiobooks. If you enjoy our audiobooks, please consider subscribing to the channel. Also, feel free to share your review in the comments section below.
Boss, this is the Iron Cave, right? As soon as he finished speaking, Gobu Sure looked up and provocatively glared at Gobu D. With a massive body, he bumped into Gobu D, pushing him aside. Gobu D was furious and retaliated by slamming his shoulder into Gobu Sure. Gobu Sure wasn't about to back down either. The two of them started shoving each other back and forth beside the sand table. What are you doing? Don't you dare break my sand table. Seeing the two big guys clashing, Li Meng shouted sternly. This shout made Gobu D and Gobu Sure jump in shock. They obediently separated and lowered their heads. Gobu D, I want you to take your bloodline descendants and half of the goblin soldiers to establish a new tribe here. Li Meng pointed with a wooden stick at the northern forest along the Goblin River, about 50 kilometers from the tribe. Gobu D nodded. Although he didn't understand why the boss wanted him to establish a new tribe, Gobu D didn't think much about it. He would do whatever the boss asked him to do. Gobu Sure, the same goes for you. Led your bloodline descendants and half of the goblin soldiers to the southern shore forest to establish a new tribe. Gobu Sure rubbed his bald head. Although he didn't understand why the boss wanted him to establish a new tribe, since Gobu D had such a task, he should have one too. Boss, can I take the female lizard men with me? No. All the female lizard men must stay in the tribe. Li Meng rejected Gobu Sure's request. The female lizard men had to be under his control. This was beneficial for controlling the population of the tribes. While a population boom had its advantages, it could also lead to various problems. Go prepare and set off immediately once your bloodline descendants return. Adult goblins would learn how to hunt with the hunting party. Goblins and their bloodline descendants were scattered among various hunting parties. It would take at least a week to recall all the bloodline descendants. Afterward, Goblin and Goblin each left the throne cave with their followers. Standing at the entrance, Li Ming watched the goblin followers depart. Now we have a double insurance. With new tribes, there are new options. From now on, his tribe wouldn't face the risk of being completely wiped out. Survival was the most important thing. Everything else could be sacrificed. As long as they survived, everything else would follow. In the following days, Li Ming stayed diligently within the tribe. Gobu Chang's pig farming enterprise, Gobu Da's carpentry workshop, and Gobu Ji's iron cave. These three places all needed Li Ming's supervision. During the day, he inspected the tribe, and at night, he worked with the female lizard men to produce little goblins. Li Ming was quite attentive to the matter of reproduction. On the fifth day, Gobu Di and Gobu Shi each left the tribe with their followers. Gobu Tian had already returned to the goblin nest half a month ago. It was another new day, and the time had reached the afternoon. Boss, it's finally done. This time there's absolutely no problem. Outside the carpentry workshop, Gobu greeted the boss with a fawning smile and led him inside. The carpentry workshop was still the same as before. As soon as he entered, Li Ming saw a 3-bow ballista at the entrance. It was clear that Gobu had deliberately placed it there. Having learned from last time, Li Ming wasn't quick to praise Gobu. He walked up and began inspecting the 3-bow ballista. First, he grabbed the ballista and gave it a shake. Though there was some noise, the modules were fairly solidly fitted together. Li Ming then touched the bow. Though the craftsmanship was rather crude, the quality of the bow was not low. He then turned the winch. A creak sound echoed in the carpentry workshop. Although it was a bit loose, it didn't hinder its use. Seeing the boss silent for a long time, Gobu started to panic. Very good, not bad. At that moment, Li Ming praised. To have achieved this was already quite impressive. The next step was to improve the goblin's proficiency. Then, have them optimize and enhance the craftsmanship of the 3-bow ballista. The boss's praise made Gobu grin widely. That's great. Gobu cheered. The goblins in the carpentry workshop also shouted excitedly. They had endured quite a few lashes from the boss these days. With the boss's boss satisfied, maybe the boss wouldn't hit them anymore. But it's still not good enough. Only when the 3-bow ballista doesn't make any noise when shaken will it truly be perfect. The boss's words made the excited Gobu Da's face fall again. Bring in a new batch of goblins. I want to teach you to make something new. Hearing that they were going to make something new, Gobu Da's heart trembled. His brain was about to explode. He couldn't fit anything new in there. He wanted to say this to the boss, but Gobu didn't dare. He could only anxiously drive the goblin followers out of the carpentry workshop. Get out, all of you, called the goblin from the other workshops over. There were 5 carpentry workshops in the tribe. However, the other workshops weren't as large as this one. The boss's shout made the goblins in the workshop shrink their necks. They ran out as if escaping. Although the boss wasn't holding a whip, the whip was placed not far from the boss in the corner. They didn't want to be whipped by the boss again. It hurt a lot. Before long, another group of goblins entered the carpentry workshop. And so, Li Ming continued to immerse himself in the development of the wagon wheel. Time ticked away day by day. The daily life of goblins was monotonous and boring, either on the road hunting or on the way back to the tribe. It was another new day, and the time had reached the afternoon. Boss, is this the new thing we're going to make? In the carpentry workshop, the first wagon wheel was successfully completed. Looking at the large wheel in front of the boss, Gobu was full of curiosity. He couldn't understand what use this round thing had. Li Ming propped up the wheel, examining it up and down. The wheel's height was nearly 1.2 meters. The outer rim of the wheel wasn't a single piece. Instead, it was assembled from multiple modules. These modules were then fixed together with iron nails. A layer of iron was wrapped around it to reduce friction. To prevent the wheel from deforming, there were load-bearing pillars between the axle and the outer rim. The axle had a linear groove. Inside the groove were small steel balls. Some animal grease was poured inside for lubrication. The steel balls and grease effectively reduced the friction between the bearing and the axle. To make this wheel, Li Meng spent nearly 2 months. During this time, he constantly explored and remade it. Finally, he settled on the current design of the finished product. Just the steel balls inside the axle took Li Meng over half a month in the iron cave. Very good, it's perfect. Li Meng was very satisfied with the finished wheel in front of him. Although it took a lot of time, it was worth it. With a sample, making the second and third, Gobuda, you're up for the second wheel. As soon as he heard the boss's words, Gobuda trembled slightly. To help the goblins better learn how to make wheels, Li Meng modularized the process, teaching each goblin to make different parts and then having them teach others. This way, teamwork would help open up those little goblin minds. Gobuda was tasked by Li Meng to learn the final assembly. What? After all this time teaching you? Don't tell me you still can't do it. Facing the boss's cold gaze, Gobuda took a step back in fear. I can do it. I can do it, boss. I've remembered everything. Gobuda nodded vigorously. I'll check in 3 days. With that, Li Meng leaned the wheel against the wall and turned to leave the carpentry workshop. Gobuda chased after him, peeking out the door to watch the boss's departing figure. Seeing the boss truly leave, he breathed a sigh of relief and quickly ran back inside the workshop. You come here. 3 goblins were called over by Gobuda. You've all learned what the boss taught me, right? The 3 goblins exchanged glances. Seeing Gobuda's fierce gaze, they could only nod. Ha! Great. The boss will definitely be satisfied. Gobuda danced with excitement. Don't slack off, wheels, I need wheels. Meanwhile, outside in the tribe, hearing Gobuda's strange shouts from the carpentry workshop, Li Meng grinned. How could he not know about Gobuda's little tricks? While teaching Gobuda, 3 goblins had been eavesdropping nearby. Li Meng simply allowed Gobuda's little cleverness. For goblins, a bit of cunning wasn't a bad thing. Boss. Not long after leaving the workshop, the sound of hooves rumbled through the tribe. 5 forest boars charged out from the western forest, heading straight for Li Meng. Each boar had a goblin riding on its back. The noise of the boars running was tremendous, and their momentum was impressive, like a mountain of flesh bearing down. Gobuchong, riding on one of the boars, shouted loudly. When they were about 20 meters from Li Meng, the boars suddenly stopped, their hooves skidding several meters on the ground. Looking at the 5 large boars in front of him, Li Meng's eyes lit up. By his calculations, the first batch of male boars had reached maturity. Although smaller than their fathers, their shoulder height was about 1.3 meters. The longer a boar lived, the larger it grew. In another year or 2, reaching a shoulder height of 1.5 meters wouldn't be a problem. Gobuchong dismounted and ran up to Li Meng with a flattering smile. Boss, you're amazing. We've raised these boars from young, and they're very obedient. Li Meng approached Gobuchong's forest boar, reaching out to touch its tusks. Though classified as magical beasts, forest boars were only first tier, with limited potential. They had magic crystals, but were unlikely to learn magical skills. However, the presence of magic crystals gave the boars a physique far superior to ordinary animals. Oink oink! The boar being petted by Li Meng was very obedient, its eyes gently watching him, occasionally making oink oink sounds. Gobuchong, what weapons do you prefer? Li Meng had been considering what weapons would suit the goblin boar riders. Typically, cavalry used lances, but lances required skill to be effective, and goblins would undoubtedly struggle to master lance techniques. Moreover, long weapons were difficult to use in the forest's narrow spaces. Goblins were better at slashing than thrusting, so equipping them with long spears was a compromise. The iron output from the iron cave was limited, and forging blades required much more iron than spearheads. Boss, I like using crossbows. Li Meng then noticed that the other 4 goblins each held a single crossbow, with no other weapons. Looking down at the forest boar's tusks, Li Meng pondered. Lances were for breaking formations, a one-time use weapon. The boar's tusks were good for ramming, effectively replacing the lance's role. Mounted archery could also disrupt enemy formations, allowing for flexibility between charging and shooting. A sword could complement close combat abilities. Moreover, the boar's shoulders were broad, making it difficult for a lance to attack enemies directly in front at a 90-degree angle. Li Meng nodded and smiled. Then use crossbows. Go Bachong. How many adult male boars do we have now? Boars were quite prolific, so there should be plenty. Boss, there are many adults, and even more juveniles. Go Bachong's answer made Li Meng's face darken. He realized goblins couldn't count. They didn't care about numbers. They didn't care how many goblins were in the hunting party. As long as they could eat their fill while hunting, they could reproduce and bring in new members. If they couldn't eat enough, they couldn't reproduce. All right, let's go check the beast pen. Li Meng then headed towards the beast pen. Before nightfall, Li Meng figured out the number of forest boars. There were 137 female boars, half of which had just reached maturity. There were 481 juvenile male boars. There were 281 juvenile female boars. Go Bachong, how many goblin underlings do you have now? By the beast pen, Li Meng asked Go Bachong. Go Bachong scratched his head and smiled sheepishly. He didn't know how to answer the boss. As soon as he asked, Li Meng realized he shouldn't have asked that question. Li Meng turned to look at the densely packed boars in the pen, all oinking. Go Bachong, how do you manage to feed so many boars? The pen was full of unweaned piglets. Once weaned, the piglets would be adopted by goblins. As for how many adult male boars there were, Li Meng didn't know. Go Bachong's underlings were all out hunting. Only about 30 goblins had returned with him. Boss, boars eat everything: grass, mushrooms, plant roots, berries, leaves. They eat everything except dirt and stones. They even eat meat and gnaw on bones. They're easy to raise. Hearing this, Li Meng understood. No wonder Go Bachong could raise over 1,000 boars without any pressure. Looks like I'll need to take some time to count the population. Looking at the oinking boars in the pen, Li Meng thought to himself. Since the tribe's founding, Li Meng had noticed the population boom, but he hadn't kept track of. Based on the number of female lizardmen, an estimate can be made. There are a total of 253 female lizardmen. More than half a year has passed, and now the pregnant female lizardmen are on their fourth batch. Each batch of goblins numbers no less than 10. Even if it's fewer, it won't be by much. With 253 female lizardmen, each batch can produce over 2,000 baby goblins. For batches make nearly 10,000. Thus, the tribe's population is around 10,000. Even if it's not exactly 10,000, it won't be far off. Are there really 10,000 goblins? Li Meng did a quick calculation in his mind. The number he came up with shocked him. With so many goblins, how do they solve the food problem? It's known that goblins are purely carnivorous creatures. How many living beings must be slaughtered to fill the goblins' stomachs? Where does so much food come from in the nearby forest? Go Bachong. Has it become more difficult to obtain food recently compared to before? Go Bachong didn't quite understand what his boss meant by this. He shook his head and scratched his head. No, hunting has become easier since we got the crossbows. Do you have a hunt much farther away? To this question from his boss, Go Bachong nodded vigorously. Boss, there are too many hunting parties around here, so we have to go farther to find more prey. Go Bachong's answer confirmed Li Meng's suspicions. No wonder Goba D and Gobu sure waited in the tribe for 5 days before leaving. Now, the hunting parties have to travel farther to fill their bellies and bring back food. No wonder he found signs of goblin activity in the forest near the Pigmen tribe. The tribe's hunting area has expanded to more than 70 kilometers east. All right, you're free to go play. Waving Go Bachong off, Li Meng turned and left. He didn't overly restrict his goblin underlings. As long as they could bring back food, they could do whatever they wanted. If they wanted to laze around the tribe for a few days, that was fine too. After all, they each had their own underlings. They could let their underlings do the work while they enjoyed themselves. As for whether the underlings would rebel, that was none of his concern. By the time Li Meng returned to the throne cave, the sky was gradually darkening. Bai Ling and the female lizardmen had long returned to the tribe. Looking at the spot where Bin Bin used to sleep by the door, Li Meng frowned slightly. He wondered where Binbin had gone. It had been over a month, and there was still no sign of him. With a slight sigh, Li Meng pushed the door open and entered. Before long, the sound of humming could be heard inside the wooden house. Time passed bit by bit, and the night deepened. In the following days, Li Meng began to tally the tribe's population and weaponry. He had only one task each day: to wait for the hunting parties to return. Half a month later, one morning, in the tribe, inside the throne cave. "Have all your underlings returned?" The 5 big goblins inside quickly nodded. "Boss, they're all back. Gobu Mo, Gobu Gao, Gobu E, Gobu Zhang, Gobu Sheng." These 5 big goblins were Li Meng's bloodline descendants. Their names all came from Li Meng. They were the first batch of goblins born. In just half a year, they evolved into big goblins. Each goblin was nearly 1.8 meters tall. They were just one step away from evolving into goblin soldiers. Li Meng waved his hand slightly, dismissing the 5 big goblins. "Go on." Even though they were his offspring, goblins had no concept of familial affection. In their eyes, he was just a strong figure in the goblin tribe. Bloodline only increased their loyalty to their paternal figure. Li Meng didn't regard them as his children. The goblin barbarians were simply too weak. In the future, even the goblin leader would just be cannon fodder. All green-skinned goblins were expendable. The female lizard men inside silently watched the departing big goblins. To them, all goblins looked the same. They couldn't distinguish if any of the 5 big goblins were their children. Even if they were, they couldn't give those goblins motherly love. Every time they recalled the appearance of newborn goblins, they shivered. The tiny goblin infants were only the size of a fist. As soon as they were born, they could run around looking for food. If they couldn't find food, they would attack their mothers. Many female lizardmen got injured because they didn't separate from the baby goblins in time. Watching the backs of the 5 departing big goblins, Li Meng wore a contemplative expression. After half a month of tallying, the population and weaponry data were out. Although he couldn't get an exact number, the difference wouldn't exceed 2 digits. The tribe's population was about 9,000 goblins. Subtracting the juveniles, there were roughly over 7,000 adult goblins. This was the terrifying aspect of goblins. It took less than a year to grow from a few hundred to 10,000. Among the adult goblins, only 5,000 were equipped with long spears and crossbows. There was a shortage of about 2,000 weapons. Bai Ling, come with me. With that, Li Meng walked outside. By his calculations, there were still over 3 months until the rotation period. Unknowingly, 9 months had passed since he began ruling the swamp. Bai Ling, who was sitting on the bed, stood up. She walked forward, silently following behind Li Meng. "Master, where are we going?" In the dim forest, the 2 walked one behind the other. Bai Ling's belly had grown again, but not by much. To the iron cave. About half an hour later, the 2 appeared in the forest outside the iron cave. Following Li Meng, Bai Ling looked at the cave entrance not far ahead. She came here every day and was already familiar with the place. Bai Ling, the high priestess? At this moment, a group of male lizard men carrying several logs emerged from the eastern forest. They saw Bai Ling and Li Meng outside the cave entrance. Upon seeing Li Meng, all the male lizardmen's faces changed. They quickly lowered their heads, not daring to speak. They hurriedly carried the logs into the cave. Although they had milk to drink every day, the male lizardmen's bodies appeared somewhat thin. "Bai Ling, do your swamp lizardmen need to eat fish to maintain their strength?" The tribe's food supply for the male lizardmen was adequate. Even if they weren't full, they wouldn't go hungry. The iron cave had an underground river, and they were given an hour to soak before resting. But even so, the male lizardmen's bodies visibly thinned. Without the rotation period, the male lizardmen would be exhausted within 2 years. Fish from the water is our staple food. We also eat other magical beast meat, but not much. Bai Ling's answer confirmed Li Meng's suspicion. "Let's go inside." Li Meng noted this issue in his mind. He would solve it, but not now. The rotation period is approaching, and a series of major events will occur in the next 6 months. The appearance of adventurer teams and the invasion of the Black Mountain Tribe's army. To change the worst outcome, Preparations must be made early. Then Li Ming led by Ling into the iron cave. As soon as they entered the cave, a scorching heat wave rolled in. It felt like being inside an oven, making it unbearably hot. The cave was bustling with noise. The clanging of metal echoed throughout, accompanied by the loud cries of goblins. Looking towards the underground riverbank, the cave was as bright as day. Dozens of blast furnaces about 5 meters high stood on the riverbank. Behind the blast furnaces were countless bonfires. Closest to the river were groups of goblins forging iron. They swung their hammers vigorously on the anvils. Each hammer strike sent a shower of sparks flying. Deeper in the cave, faint thud-thud sound could be heard. A large number of male lizard men could be seen carrying iron ore in bamboo baskets. On the shallow banks of the river, some male lizard men were bathing. The high temperature inside the cave made the skin of the male lizard men prone to cracking. They needed to bathe frequently to rehydrate and alleviate this process. Boss, why are you here again?" As soon as they entered the cave, Gobu, who had received the news, came running over. "What can I come?" Li Ming glared at Gobu. Gobu shrank his neck and smiled obsequiously. "The boss can come whenever he wants." "Enough nonsense. Prepare a blast furnace for me. I want to smelt iron." Gobu nodded vigorously, then turned around to lead the way. Boss, this way." Following Gobu, Li Ming and Bai Ling ventured deeper into the cave. Finally, they stopped in front of a blast furnace. "Boss, here it is." Li Ming took the apron made of animal skin from Gobu and put it on. The apron could effectively block the splattering molten iron, and also shield against flying sparks while forging. "Bai Ling, go stay in the river." Bai Ling couldn't withstand the high temperature near the blast furnace. She would faint in at most 2 hours. Bai Ling silently walked forward and stepped into the cold river water. Then she sat down in the shallow water about 1 meter deep, her head just above the water, watching the big goblin on the riverbank. At this time, more than a dozen goblins ran over to assist Li Ming. In the following time, Li Ming busied himself around the blast furnace. Until the afternoon of the next day, with a furnace of molten iron ready, Li Ming entered the blacksmithing mode. By the water's edge, Li Ming held a massive hammer in one hand, furiously hammering a long weapon on the anvil, sometimes quenching, sometimes tempering, sometimes hammering. Each hammer strike echoed with a crisp metallic sound in the cave. The sound was the loudest, drowning out all other noises. As the saying goes, steel is forged through 100 refinements. To get good steel, it must be hammered 1,000 times. Is it smelting iron? Bai Ling had been observing the goblin on the bank from the river. Since arriving at the iron cave yesterday, it hadn't paid attention to her. Bai Ling was no stranger to the iron cave. She had been here hundreds of times, although she could never get close to these furnaces. But from a distance, she knew what the goblins were doing. The swamp lizard men, though barbarians, did not harbor animosity towards humans. Bai Ling had also communicated with human adventurers. She was not unfamiliar with iron tools. On the third day, the loudest metallic clanging in the cave finally ceased. "Bai Ling, what do you think of this weapon?" The call from the master on the shore made Bai Ling step out of the water. She came ashore and stood before her master. Looking at the long-handled weapon in her master's hand, Bai Ling's pupils contracted. "Master, this weapon is so mighty." The weapon in the master's hand had a long handle and blade, almost as tall as the master. The weapon was iron gray all over, with a very smooth surface. The sharpened blade gleamed fiercely in the firelight. Holding this weapon, the master's aura seemed to grow stronger. "This is Mo Dao." Li Ming wielded the Mo Dao with both hands, swinging it a few times. In a flash, he charged towards a giant rock on the riverbank not far away. Slash! The distance of over 20 meters was covered in an instant. Li Ming wielded the Mo Dao with both hands, letting out a powerful shout. A standard waist-to-shoulder downward slash. Boom! A thunderous crash was heard. The Mo Dao sliced through the nearly 2-meter-high boulder like cutting through tofu. The massive impact shattered the boulder into pieces. The commotion startled the surrounding goblins. This scene left Bai Ling utterly astonished. What a sharp weapon! It actually sliced such a large rock. Satisfied with his strike, Li Ming nodded approvingly. He picked up the Mo Dao again to inspect the blade. Upon seeing it, a trace of disappointment flashed in Li Ming's eyes. The blade showed no chips, but it was slightly twisted. His strength was simply too great, exceeding what the Mo Dao could withstand. The phenomenon of cold weapons getting bent was unavoidable. Shaking his head, Li Ming discarded the Mo Dao. Bai Ling, go back to the water. Bai Ling looked at her master, then at the Mo Dao discarded on ground. She silently turned and returned to the water. On the riverbank, Li Ming began tinkering with the blast furnace again. The next morning, another furnace of molten iron was ready. On the riverbank, Li Ming began swinging the large hammer again. With each swing, sweat flew off his body. The scorching heat made Li Ming sweat profusely. In the cold, underground river, a flash of white passed by. Moments later, splashes erupted on the river's surface. Bai Ling emerged from the water. She held a black rock fish frozen into an ice block. Bai Ling dragged the black rock fish back to the shallows. Sitting in the water, she quietly watched the big goblin forging on the bank. Over the past few days, Bai Ling had come to understand. The reason her master brought her was both a deterrent and a warning. It was to show her that the goblins with iron-smelting technology were not something the swamp lizard men could challenge. Time passed bit by bit. The daily life of the Iron Cave did not change with Li Ming's arrival. The next day, in the afternoon, it's done. On the underground riverbank, Li Ming held a large iron rod and planted it in the ground. The iron rod was about 2.5 meters long and 5 centimeters in diameter. For Li Ming now, the iron rod was a bit long and a bit thick. But once Li Ming evolved into a goblin soldier, the iron rod would be very handy. Looking at the large iron rod in his hand, Li Ming nodded with satisfaction. This was the weapon he forged for himself. Compared to those bladed weapons, Li Ming felt blunt weapons suited him better. Originally, Li Ming wanted to forge a long-handled mace, but after careful consideration, he decided against it. The uneven weight of a mace made it unsuitable for close combat. When fighting strong opponents, every move must be fast, accurate, and ruthless. Any slight mistake could become a fatal weakness. Against weaker foes, any weapon would suffice. Even without a weapon, he could kill enemies with his fists. How about calling you the Rui Jingu Bang? The large iron rod in Li Ming's hand reminded him of memories from when he was human. Forget it, you're not worthy. I'll just call you Big Iron Rod. How could a mere iron rod be worthy of such a name? Even though the rod was crafted by his own hands, Li Ming felt it didn't deserve it. Bai Ling, let's go, we're heading back. Li Ming tore off his apron, hoisted the big iron rod onto his shoulder, and walked outside. Bai Ling, who was in the shallow waters of the river, stood up. She followed her master onto the shore. The two of them then left the iron cave. Until they returned to the throne cave, Li Ming didn't say much to Bai Ling. It was as if taking Bai Ling to the iron cave was just a whim of his. That night, the throne cave was very quiet. Ever since the female lizard man became pregnant, Li Ming hadn't bothered them. The goblin's sexual desire was somewhat different from that of humans. A goblin's desire was based on the urge to reproduce. Although the body experienced pleasure, it wasn't as intense as a human's. Goblins wouldn't mate just to pursue the pleasure of desire. Whenever the female lizard man was pregnant, Li Ming would enter a sage state of mind. He wouldn't have any desire to mate with the female lizard man. But upon seeing non-pregnant female creatures, the desire to mate would erupt like a volcano. Lying on the main bed inside the room, Li Ming was lost in thought. Bai Ling lay beside him, her breathing slightly rapid. This indicated that Bai Ling was awake and not asleep. System, start the simulated life. Li Ming didn't know if the future had changed. He hadn't used this month's simulation attempts yet, so he might as well use them. Simulated life begins. The night is deep. You lie on the bed inside the wooden house, lost in thought. Your tribe is thriving, seemingly uneventful, but in reality, it's the calm before the storm. The rotation period has arrived. Please choose from the following options. 1. Release Bai Ling back to the northern swamp. 2. Break your promise and keep Bai Ling in the tribe. 3. March to the northern swamp, wait for a chance, and prepare for the arrival of the Black Mountain Tribe's army. The appearance of the third option made Li Meng realize something. That the previous simulated life had become valuable information for this simulation. The system knew he wouldn't choose the future line predicted last time, and it would change the future line based on the information. What should I choose? Turning slightly, Li Meng looked at Bai Ling's snow-white, graceful figure. The third option was very tempting, but its result would likely lead to a deadly battle with the Black Mountain Tribe's army. The Black Mountain Tribe was new and unfamiliar with the area. If they didn't exchange information with the Lizardmen tribe of the northern swamp, the Black Mountain Tribe's army might launch an attack blindly, knowing nothing. Once the battle started, it would be a fight to the death. At that point, neither side would agree to retreat. But choosing the swamp as the battlefield wasn't a good strategy. Even if they won in the end, the losses would be significant. Without the Pigmen tribe, a larger loss wouldn't matter much. It would be a good opportunity to clear out the goblins with less potential in the tribe. But with the pigmen around, they must preserve their forces as much as possible to deal with the threat. Leaving Bai Ling in the tribe a year ago only changed the future line, where the pigmen and lizardmen cooperated to attack the tribe. It didn't mean the pigmen threat was eliminated. The pigmen threat still existed. It was just that the outbreak time was postponed. Li Meng ruled out the third option. The first option, after thinking it over, Li Meng also rejected the first option. The first option would return to the previous future line. The Black Mountain Tribe's army would retreat, and Bai Ling would be captured. If he let Bai Ling go, it might avoid conflict with the Black Mountain Tribe. The Black Mountain Tribe wouldn't summon the barbarian god, but the result would be that the lizardmen of the northern swamp would be gone. Without the northern swamp lizardmen, how could the tribe expand its forces? Choose option 2. The rotation period has arrived. You forcibly kept Bai Ling, angering the northern swamp lizardmen. The swamp lizardmen launched a rebellion and successfully escaped through the river. You gathered the goblin army and marched to the northern swamp. Under the guidance of the northern swamp lizardmen, the Black Mountain Tribe's army landed on the southern riverbank of the tribe. The lizardmen army launched a surprise attack on your tribe, and the tribe was destroyed. Goblin led the bloodline offspring into the Iron Cave. The lizardmen army attacked the Iron Cave. Goblin led the bloodline offspring into the depths of the cave. Upon learning that the lizardmen army had ambushed the tribe, you angrily withdrew your troops and returned to the tribe. One night, Binbin returned to the tribe with a group of ogres and fought with the lizardmen army. The lizardmen army was repelled and took Bai Ling, hurriedly retreating through the river. You returned to the tribe, angrily looking at the ruins it had become. You lost the tribe and also lost Bai Ling. Please make the following choice. 1. Continue marching to the northern swamp for revenge. 2. Do nothing and rebuild the tribe. 3. In your anger, you charged alone into the northern swamp. Am I really that strong? The third option made Li Meng's expression turn strange. Could he really be strong enough to fight 1,000 alone? With so many lizardmen, even exhaustion could kill him. But deciding what to choose stumped Li Meng again. Option 1 would likely end in failure. By the time he led the goblin army to the northern swamp, the lizardmen would have already fled. Option 2 meant he suffered a significant loss, and it was a loss he had to accept. The lizardmen who betrayed him would certainly not stay in the northern swamp. They would likely leave the northern swamp and merge with the Black Mountain Tribe. Not seeking trouble with the northern swamp lizardmen for a while didn't mean he wouldn't seek it forever. Since he couldn't defeat them, they had no choice but to migrate. Options 1 and 2 were both bad choices, leaving only option 3. Choose option 3. In your anger, you charged alone into the northern swamp. One night, you stormed into the White-Scale Tribe, finding it deserted. One night, you stormed into the Gray-Scale Tribe, finding it deserted. One night, you stormed into the Black-Scale Tribe, finding it deserted. You returned empty-handed to the tribe. You began rebuilding the tribe. You went to the goblin nest. One day, an adventurer team appeared in the forest near the goblin nest. You followed the adventurer team to the crash site of the airship. The adventurer team headed north. You suspected the adventurer team could sense the location of the crystal. You returned to the tribe and threw the crystal into the Goblin River. One day, the adventurer team found the crystal in the river. You followed the adventurer team downstream, heading west. One day, you were discovered. Please make the following choice. 1. Avoid battle and flee. 2. Fight the adventurer team. Li Meng rolled his eyes as he lay on the bed. Goodness, the results of these three options are actually the same. How should I choose the new two options? Option 2. He followed the adventurer team all the way west. There's a high chance they've already left the tribe's hunting area. Killing that adventurer team poses little risk afterward. Even if those two humans come, it doesn't matter. By then, the man and woman definitely won't find the culprit. They wouldn't think it was a weak goblin who killed the adventurers. The last time those two humans found the tribe, it should have been related to those two human women. Those women must have had something with a tracking function on them. You chose to fight the adventurer team and successfully killed all the adventurers. You devoured their hearts, but did not gain any new skills. You returned to the tribe, and the tribe thrived. The lesson from the ambush made you decide to strengthen the tribe's defenses. The tribe now has walls, watchtowers, and a large number of three-bow ballistae. One day, Bai Ling returned to the tribe with news. The Black Mountain tribe was attacked by mysterious human male and female warriors who summoned the barbarian god, Aqua, to defend. The human warriors fell, and the Black Mountain swamp was polluted by the power of the barbarian god. The Black Mountain swamp gradually turned into a wasteland, and all living beings were refined into wasteland slaves. One day, you discovered the great wasteland was expanding, and the devoured land lost its vitality. One day, a fleet of human ships appeared in the Goblin River, sailing upstream. The 3-year limit has arrived. As a transmigrator, you used your wisdom to survive. Although you are just a goblin, your future is full of countless possibilities, and your rise is unstoppable. Simulated life ends. Score 100. Please choose the following reward. 1. Consume 10 score points to increase level by 1. 2. Consume 1 score point to increase an attribute by 1. 3. Consume 10 score points to increase luck by 1. 4. Consume 10 score points to increase Wind Blade skill level by 1. 5. Consume 10 score points to increase Heart Speech skill level by 1. 6. Consume 10 score points to increase Berserk skill by 1. The 3 skills aren't urgently needed for an upgrade. Let's increase the level instead. Choose 1. Consume 100 score points. Level plus 10. Current level 25. Here it comes. The familiar intense pain swept through his body once more. This time it was more painful than the previous times when upgrading levels. On the bed, Li Meng's body was undergoing strange distortions. All his bones were dislocated, cracking, and snapping. It was as if an invisible giant hand was kneading Li Meng's body. Li Meng's entire ugly face was twisted beyond recognition. His skull suddenly protruded outward, as if something was about to crawl out of his brain. The crisp crack sound startled Bai Ling, who was beside him. She turned to look at her master. At this sight, Bai Ling was stunned. Her once small master had suddenly grown. His height now exceeded 2 meters, and his physique was more robust. His whole body emitted rolling white steam. Some areas of his skin were fiery red. "Master, what's happening to you?" Li Meng sat up, looking down at his enlarged hands. "I've evolved into a goblin soldier." Power, power. Li Meng felt the immense strength within his body. He was now comparable to a muscular giant like Tyson. Of course, only in physique. In strength, even 50 Tysons couldn't match him. Li Meng lay back on the bed. Sleep. With a thought, Li Meng opened the character panel. Name, Goblin. Race, Goblin Soldier. Level, 25. Strength, 1925. Defense, 1859. Agility, 871. Magic, 1551. Charm, 0. Luck, 11. Devour. Devouring the flesh of magical beasts may grant their skills. Steel skin, LV 5. Strength plus 1,500. Defense plus 1,500. Agility plus 500. Windblade, LV 1. Body regeneration, LV 5. Heart speech, LV 1. Ice element control, LV 1. Berserk, LV 1. Limb enhancement, LV 1. Strength plus 50. Agility plus 50. Elemental affinity, LV 1. Magic plus 1,000. It seems the guess was correct. The panel attributes, with hundreds of points added, confirmed Li Meng's guess. The higher the panel attributes, the higher the attribute bonus when leveling up. Li Meng still remembered that before leveling from 1 to 10, each level only added single-digit attribute points. Staring blankly at the ceiling, Li Meng thought again about the future line predicted by the simulated life. Li Meng didn't expect Bai Ling to return on her own in the end. And why did those two human warriors go to the Black Mountain tribe again? Could it be that the place where the adventurer team was killed was very close to the Black Mountain tribe? No, that's absolutely impossible. Although Bai Ling didn't tell him the exact location of the Black Mountain tribe, she said it was deep in the Goblin forest, very far from the northern swamp. Even by water, it would take more than 3 months for a lizard man to reach it. He couldn't have followed the adventurer team for months near the Black Mountain tribe. Strange, is it impossible to change the future where the Black Mountain tribe summons the barbarian god? All 3 future lines couldn't change the Black Mountain tribe's summoning of the barbarian god. This made Li Meng deeply worried about his own future. And what was the Principality of Illicis doing here? This is the Goblin forest, the land of the barbarians. The appearance of the Principality of Illicis's fleet in the Goblin forest is definitely not a good thing. Perhaps that fleet is the warships of the Principality of Illicis. Forget it, take it one step at a time. Receiving too much information at once gave Li Meng a headache. Too many things were happening all at once. Li Meng had no clue how to change the future. Time was ticking away, and the night grew deeper. I've got it. Early the next morning, Li Meng suddenly sat up from his sleep. His strange shout startled the female lizard men sleeping nearby. They all sat up, looking at their master in confusion. Li Meng got up and hurried outside. Bai Ling also woke up. She looked at Li Meng's hurriedly departing figure with some confusion. Bring Gobu Mo and Gobu Gao here. Outside the door, Li Meng woke up the goblin underlings who were snoring on the ground. The boss's voice made the sleeping goblins shiver. They jumped up in surprise, quickly standing up. One goblin hurriedly picked up the long spear on the ground and rushed off. Boss, you've evolved into a goblin soldier? When they looked at the boss, all the goblins were shocked. In just one night, the boss had evolved from a big goblin into a goblin soldier. The goblin underlings were filled with fear. They shrank their necks, quickly standing up straight. In no time, Gobu Mo and Gobu Gao hurried over. From a distance, they saw the boss standing outside the entrance of the throne cave. The boss's tall and strong figure made the two big goblins exchange glances. The boss had actually evolved into a goblin soldier? Gobu Mo quickly sped up his pace. Gobu Gao, on the other hand, ran with little hops, overtaking Gobu Mo. Boss, that's great. You've finally advanced to a goblin soldier. Gobu Gao ran up to Li Meng with a fawning expression. Gobu Mo, a few steps behind, glared at Gobu Gao. Boss, is there something you need us for? Gobu Mo also wore a flattering expression. However, he was smarter than Gobu Gao and got straight to the point. Follow me. Li Meng left the entrance of the throne cave and headed deeper into the forest. Gobu Mo and Gobu Gao quickly followed. Li Meng ventured deep into the forest. He didn't stop until he was several hundred meters away from the tribe. Gobu Mo, Gobu Gao, your task from now on is to build a wooden wall to enclose the tribe. Right now, what you need to do is clear a buffer zone around the tribe. Li Meng planted the big iron rod into the ground. One end of the rod sank deeply into the soft soil. Then he forcefully drew a large circle. The buffer zone must be at least 500 meters wide. Li Meng swung the big iron rod and pointed at the large trees beside him. About the width of 10 large trees, got it? Gobu Mo and Gobu Gao looked up at the large trees beside them. How tall were 10 large trees? Boss, how much is 10 trees? Li Meng rolled his eyes at Gobu Mo's question. All right, it seems I'll have to teach these goblin underlings how to count. They need to know what 1, 2, 3 for means. First, organize the goblins to cut down the trees. I'll guide you on site. There are axes and saws in the warehouse. Go get them. Gobu Mo and Gobu Gao nodded. Then they turned and hurried away. In the forest, Li Meng watched the backs of the two big goblin underlings as they left. He didn't look away until they disappeared from sight. Scanning the surrounding forest, Li Meng grinned. If attacking doesn't work, then let's defend. Previously, Li Meng thought there was no need to build a wooden wall. He believed that instead of passive defense, it was better to take the initiative to attack. Although a wooden wall could effectively protect the tribe, it would also bring some trouble. Once goblins fell into a passive defense, failure wouldn't be far off. Now, Li Meng had changed his mindset. Why choose? Li Meng wanted both defense and offense. Soon, the tribe was bustling. Gobu Mo and Gobu Gao led a large group of goblin underlings in a grand march towards this direction. Some goblins carried axes, while others carried saws. At a glance, the dense green-skinned figures numbered no less than 500. Before long, the sound of logging echoed from deep within the forest. The rhythmic sounds resonated through the forest depths. Occasionally, there was the crash of trees falling. In the following days, Li Meng began teaching the goblin underlings some basic counting. By the 5th day, the forest had undergone a significant transformation. A blank area appeared several hundred meters away from the tribe in the forest. The blank area was 500 meters wide and 600 meters long. The bare ground was covered with wooden stakes, and layers of branches and leaves were piled up. Numerous logs were scattered haphazardly across the ground. The blank area wasn't straight, it was curved. Soon, the blank area would encircle the tribe. How many is this? In a place where logs were piled in the blank area, Li Meng held 3 wooden sticks in his hand. Gobu Mo, Gobu Gao, and a group of big goblins obediently sat on the ground. Some members of the hunting party, upon returning, were asked by Li Meng to join the wooden wall construction team. Now, the number of goblins building the wooden wall exceeded 1,000. Li Meng pointed at Gobu Gao. The boss's question made the big goblins shrink their necks. Their gazes were somewhat evasive. Gobu Gao, you answer. Gobu Gao stood up, scratched his head, and looked down at his hands. His eyes lit up, and Gobu Gao said a number. 3, it's 3. Li Meng nodded in satisfaction. Very good, that's correct. Gobu Gao grinned, very pleased. And what does 3 mean? Li Meng continued to question Gobu Gao. Gobu Gao glanced at the ground. He bent down and picked up 3 small stones. 1 stone, 2 stones, 3 stones. Gobu Gao's answer made Li Meng very satisfied. After his teaching over the past few days, the goblin underlings finally understood the meaning of numbers 1 to 10. Numbers are the foundation of intelligence. Although this couldn't change the fact that goblins were foolish. But in the future, he could command the goblin underlings more effectively. Very good, Gobu Mo, Gobu Gao. You know how to build a wooden wall now, right? A small section of the wooden wall had already been built at the edge of the blank area, not far away. The wooden wall had 2 layers with a hollow center. It was about 7 meters high and 5 meters wide, with a 15-meter-high watchtower built every 50 meters. The trees in the forest were very tall, with an average height of about 70 meters. The wooden wall could be built higher, but the workload for anything over 7 meters was too much. Building it was also more troublesome. After all, erecting a 7-meter-high log wasn't an easy task. Fortunately, the number of big goblins in the tribe was considerable. With them around, handling 7-meter-long logs wasn't a problem. Gobu Mo and Gobu Gao quickly nodded. Very good. I'll leave this to you. Work hard and don't slack off. Faced with the boss's gaze, the big goblins shrank their necks. Without saying anything more, Li Ming tossed aside the wooden sticks in his hand. Then he turned and walked towards the direction of the tribe. Go find Gobu, Gobu Zhang, Gobu Sheng, and have him come see me. As he walked, Li Ming waved to the goblin underlings following him. One of the goblins quickly ran towards the tribe. Gobu, Gobu Zhang, and Gobu Sheng had always stayed in the tribe. Their task was to guard the tribe. By afternoon, the sun was blazing. When Li Ming returned to the throne cave, the wooden house was empty. At this time, the female lizardmen had all gone to the iron cave for fun. Why aren't goblins omnivorous creatures? Smelling the strong, milky aroma in the house, Li Ming couldn't help but complain in his heart. The milky aroma was indeed pleasant, but unfortunately, he couldn't drink it. It's not that he couldn't drink it, but it tasted strange. Could it be that plain milk just doesn't taste good? When he was human, Li Ming had heard that human milk didn't taste good, but he had never tried it himself. After all, a grown man only had the chance to taste it after getting married and Boss. Suddenly, hurried footsteps echoed from outside the door. The next moment, 3 towering figures burst into the room. Boss, did you call us? Gobu Sheng shoved Gobu and Gobu Zhang aside. With a fawning expression, it approached the boss. Looking at the 3 big goblins before him, Li Ming nodded. In another half-month, Gobu Mo and the others should evolve into goblin soldiers. Li Ming's gaze fixed on Gobu Sheng. Gobu Sheng, go to the iron cave and bring all the male lizard men here. Gobu Sheng grinned, nodded, and turned to trot out. Li Ming then looked at Gobu and Gobu Zhang. Gobu Gobu Zhang, gather your underlings and prepare to follow me to the northern swamp. The boss was taking them to the northern swamp? Gobu and Gobu Zhang were thrilled. Finally, they could go hunting with the boss. They quickly turned and raced out, eager to be first. Watching the 2 big goblins jostling each other, Li Ming grinned wickedly. 3 more months, just in time. Li Ming already had a plan in mind to change the future. For the tribe's future, he absolutely couldn't lose the lizardmen from the northern swamp. Although Bai Ling would eventually return on her own in the future. By then, there might be very few lizardmen left who escaped from the Black Mountain Swamp. Half an hour later, at the Iron Cave. No way, no way. The lizardmen are mine, all mine. At the entrance of the Iron Cave, Gobu Gu glared angrily at Gobu Sheng. Today, I must take all the male lizardmen. They are mine. Gobu Sheng was not to be outdone. It opened its sharp mouth and roared loudly. Gobu Sheng, when the boss took me in as a follower, you were still in the boss's nest, and you dare to snatch things from me. Gobu Gu grinned, looking at Gobu Sheng with disdain. Are you giving them or not? Gobu Sheng glared fiercely. Gobu Gu glared back just as fiercely. No! The goblin underlings inside and outside the cave exchanged glances. Fight, fight! No one knew who shouted it first. All the goblins' eyes lit up, shouting excitedly. Fight, fight! The synchronized chants grew louder and louder. The underlings' cheers made Gobu Sheng and Gobu Ji's blood boil. Ha ha ha! Gobu Sheng, come on, today I'll make you crawl. Gobu Gu laughed excitedly, tearing off its apron. Gobu Sheng wasn't swayed by the underlings' cheers. It snorted coldly, a look of mockery on its face. The boss sent me. Hearing this, the excitement on Gobu Ji's face vanished instantly. The goblin underlings behind both sides also stopped cheering. At the cave entrance, they stared at each other. Gobu Sheng, why didn't you say so earlier? Just you wait, I'll definitely tell the boss. Gobu Gu glared angrily at Gobu Sheng. It turned and trotted back into the cave. Its group of goblin underlings quickly followed. Gobu Sheng stood there with a look of disdain, listening to the commotion in the iron cave. Just a little trash like you. I can take on 10. Meanwhile, in another part of the tribe, it was already afternoon, and the tribe suddenly became noisy. A large number of goblins gathered in the forest outside the throne cave. They had been patrolling various parts of the tribe. The boss's order made them leave their posts and gather in front of the throne cave. What are they up to now? The female lizardmen hiding in the wooden huts secretly observed outside. They saw a large number of goblins gathering in front of the largest wooden hut. The goblins' chattering echoed throughout the tribe. "Boss, everyone is here." Gobui approached the boss with a fawning expression. Standing at the door, Li Meng grinned. He squinted his eyes, scanning over the dense crowd of goblin underlings. There were nearly 1,000 goblins in sight. 40% of them were his bloodline descendants. 30% were his grandchildren goblins. The rest were branch bloodline descendants who had submitted to his offspring. Just then, a commotion arose on the outskirts. Bai Ling walked over, escorted by a group of goblins. Wherever she passed, the goblins made way. Their eyes filled with curiosity and greed as they looked at Bai Ling. "Master, what are you planning to do? Where are you taking the male lizardmen?" The commotion at the Iron Cave made Bai Ling rush back to the tribe. With the rotation period approaching, Bai Ling had a bad feeling. She stormed over to Li Meng, full of anxiety. Li Meng looked at Bai Ling, their eyes meeting. Slap! Li Meng swung his hand, slapping Bai Ling across the face. The immense force sent Bai Ling flying. Her curvaceous body slammed heavily against the wooden wall. "Oomph!" Bai Ling groaned in pain, unable to get up. Blood trickled from the corner of her mouth. The boss's sudden action startled the goblins outside. Gobu Yi and Gobu Zhang, closest to Li Meng, backed away in fear. They sensed the boss's anger from behind him. Li Meng grinned wickedly at Bai Ling on the ground and walked over to her. Bai Ling tried to get up, but Li Meng stomped on her head. "It seems I've been too lenient, and you've forgotten your place." Li Meng looked down expressionlessly at Bai Ling under his foot. With a crack, the wooden plank under Bai Ling's face shattered. The power of Li Meng's stomp was evident. Terror filled Bai Ling's face as she lay under Li Meng's foot. She sensed a murderous intent from her master. "Master, I was wrong. Spare me." Humiliation flashed in Bai Ling's eyes. She couldn't die. If she did, what would happen to her people? She had to live. She must survive. Only by living was there hope. Seeing Bai Ling beg for mercy, Li Meng smiled playfully. This female lizardman knew when to yield. Li Meng removed his foot from Bai Ling's head. He turned to face the crowd of goblin underlings outside. "Bai Ling, remember, I am a goblin, and you are a slave to the goblins. The reason you are alive is because I still need you. Don't try to test my limits, or you won't be slaves anymore, but meat." "Ha ha ha." Standing at the door, Li Meng laughed loudly. His booming voice echoed throughout the tribe. Watching the boss suddenly burst into laughter, the goblins exchanged glances. "Ha ha ha." Gobu Yi and Gobu Zhang joined in the laughter. They were filled with excitement and joy, as if they had heard the funniest joke. "Ha ha ha." The other goblins also joined in. They danced and laughed loudly. For a moment, the tribe was filled with the goblins' laughter. For a moment, the tribe was filled with joy and laughter. But this joy and laughter belonged only to the goblins. Other races would feel a chill upon hearing it. At this moment, figures moved in the distant forest. Gobu Sheng led a group of male lizardmen over. Seeing the goblins laughing in front of the throne cave, it also laughed. "Ha ha ha." It couldn't help but laugh loudly. Its underlings followed suit, laughing loudly. The male lizardmen looked on in confusion at the laughing goblins. What on earth had happened? Why would these goblins laugh? After a while, the echoing laughter in the tribe finally subsided. Almost instantly, all sounds vanished, because the leader at the entrance of the throne cave stopped laughing. Boss, they're all here." Gobu Sheng hurried over, a flattering smile on his face. Li Meng glanced at the male lizardmen not far away. "Have 'em bring all the axes and saws. Let's move out. Head to the northern swamp." With that, Li Meng strode forward, heading out of the tribe. Wherever he passed, the goblin underlings made way. They looked at the towering figure of their leader with nothing but awe. Nearly 1,000 goblins followed Li Meng like a wave sweeping out of the tribe. At the gate, Bai Ling got up from the ground. She wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth. The female lizard man who had returned with her quickly stepped forward to support her. "They're heading to the northern swamp." Watching the departing goblins, Bai Ling thought to herself. She had just heard what the master said. She was certain the master's destination was the northern swamp. Why was the master heading to the northern swamp at this time? Could it be that reinforcements from the Black Mountain tribe have arrived? This possibility brought a hint of joy to Bai Ling's heart, but it was quickly followed by worry. Unless the entire Black Mountain tribe attacked, there was no chance of defeating the master. High Priest, go back and rest. Two female lizardmen helped Bai Ling into a wooden house. The commotion in the tribe lasted only a short while. Soon, the tribe quieted down. In the following days, Li Ming led the team westward. They traveled during the day, hunted in the first half of the night, and rested in the second half. On the third day, in the forest north of the Goblin River, where are the goblins taking us? This direction. Could it be to the northern swamp? In the dim forest, a large group of lizard men moved westward. Around them were many goblins communicating with wah-wah sounds. Green-skinned figures of various sizes filled a large part of the forest. Grayscale and Blackscale exchanged glances as they walked through the forest. The rotation period was approaching, giving them a sense of foreboding. Time passed bit by bit, day after day. On the afternoon of the fifth day, in the forest east of the northern swamp, we're finally back. Looking at the endless swamp before them, the lizard men on the shore looked at each other. After nearly a year, they had finally returned. This was a place they were familiar with. As long as they dived into the water, they could escape the goblins' control. But they dare not and could not do so, because their families were still in the hands of the goblins, because their home was in the northern swamp. Wah-wah! At this moment, a group of goblins rushed over, shouting. They snatched the axes and saws from the lizardmen and began chopping trees in the forest by the shore. Another group of goblins prodded the lizardmen with long spears, driving the lizardmen to cut down trees. For a time, the thud-thud of logging echoed in the forest. Occasionally, there was the crash of trees falling. Meanwhile, Li Ming led a group of goblins into the swamp. In the vast swamp, Li Ming and his goblin underlings ventured westward. On the afternoon of the third day, on the eastern shore of a piece of land not submerged by water, Li Ming and his goblin underlings set foot on the land. Well, this place isn't bad. Standing on the soft ground, Li Ming gazed into the distance. Along the way, they encountered many similar islands. But those islands were either too small or had rugged terrain. The island before them was a flat expanse. It risked being submerged at high tide. Such a place was ideal for lizardmen to live. This is it, we're going to build a wooden stronghold here. A hint of disappointment flashed in the eyes of Gobu Zhang, and Gobu Sheng behind Li Ming. They had originally thought the boss was taking them out for a fight. They hadn't expected to be doing hard labor. Gobu, do you know where the Grayscale tribe is? The map in the throne cave clearly marked the locations of the three lizardmen tribes. Although goblins were rather foolish, they had a great sense of direction and never forgot a place they'd been to once. Gobu looked around. He pointed southwest with his right hand. Boss, in that direction. Good, go. Head to the Grayscale tribe and bring all the lizardmen here. With that, Li Ming gave a sinister smile. If they resist, then kill them until they can't resist anymore. Gobu grinned, resting his spiked club on his shoulder. All right, boss, I'll bring them back. Then Gobu hurriedly led his goblin underlings southwest. The goblins on the island watched as Gobu departed. Gobu Zhang, you go to the Blackscale tribe and bring all the lizardmen here. Gobu Zhang nodded and continued walking. The goblin underlings quickly followed behind him. Gobu Sheng, return to the forest immediately and transport all the timber here. Transporting timber was much easier where there was water. After all, timber floats. Gobu Sheng turned with a grim face and headed back the way they came. Once the three big goblin underlings left, only a dozen goblin underlings remained behind Li Ming. 3 months left, just enough time. Li Ming took a deep breath. Inhaling the swamp's air with a hint of decay, he looked pleased. The purpose of building the wooden stronghold was singular: to gather all the lizardmen from the three tribes together. This way, the Black Mountain tribe's army would lose the chance to contact the northern swamp. Even if they found the wooden stronghold, it wouldn't matter. Li Ming didn't mind engaging in a defensive battle with the Black Mountain tribe's army. He had enough forces to guard the northern swamp's wooden stronghold in the tribe. Li Meng's goal wasn't to annihilate the Black Mountain tribe's army, but to make them retreat in defeat, leaving empty-handed. At the same time, he couldn't push the Black Mountain tribe too hard, to avoid them summoning the barbarian god Aqua. As for the human adventurer couple, avoiding their appearance was easy. The adventurer squad line was the easiest to resolve. Let them complete their mission and leave obediently. As long as he didn't interfere with the adventurer squad, no further events would be triggered. Simply perfect. Li Meng grinned with some pride. With the life simulation system, avoiding dangerous future lines was relatively easy. Letting the adventurer squad go won't trigger some unknown event, will it? Li Meng suddenly recalled 4 words. The butterfly effect. Letting the adventurer squad go didn't mean the event was over. It might lead to a bigger event. Just have to wait and see. Solve the immediate problem first. Shaking his head, Li Meng muttered to himself. He wasn't a perfectionist. Achieving the most perfect ending wasn't so easy. At the moment, we can only proceed cautiously, taking one step at a time. Time trickled away day by day. In the following days, the wooden fortress in the northern swamp began major construction. The lizard men were tasked with chopping down trees in the forest on the eastern shore. The goblins were responsible for transporting the various sizes of timber to the wooden fortress. On the island, the wooden wall construction started from the eastern shore. On the first day, only 30 meters of the wall was built. With a start made, the progress accelerated on the second day. On the second day, 50 meters were built. On the third day, 70 meters were constructed. After 3 days, the daily construction length of the wooden wall never fell below 70 meters. On the morning of the 5th day, Boss, Gobu is back. A goblin came running up to Li Meng excitedly. At that moment, Li Meng was observing the construction efforts of the goblin underlings from a distance. Without his supervision, goblins love to slack off. The report from the goblin underling made Li Meng's eyes light up. Finally back, Li Meng turned and walked towards the northwest shore. Hastily arriving at the shore, Li Meng gazed towards the distant swamp. In that direction, a massive procession was approaching. A dense mass of figures, large and small, stretched out. The small ones were goblins. The large ones were lizardmen, although the number of lizardmen far exceeded that of the goblins. The lizardmen obediently walked alongside the goblins. Both sides coexisted peacefully, each going their own way. It took over an hour for the massive procession to reach the island. Boss, I'm back. Seeing the boss waiting on the shore. From afar, Gobu ran toward the boss. Gobu, panting heavily, came ashore. He shook his body vigorously, shedding the water from his animal skin. Li Meng glanced at the lizardmen team, not far away. Are they all here? Gobu nodded and grinned. They don't understand what I'm saying. I gestured for a long time before they got it. Some lizardmen didn't want to come with us and started attacking us, so we ate them, and then they were willing to come along. At this, Gobu laughed heartily. Boss, those lizardmen are so stupid. We weren't going to eat them. Li Meng's gaze turned to the lizardmen team coming ashore not far away. There were quite a few, nearly 800. Most were women and children. The number of adult male lizardmen didn't exceed 300. Female lizardmen and male lizardmen were easy to distinguish. Female lizardmen were much smaller than their male counterparts. How many male lizardmen died? Gobu looked down at his fingers. Dead are 33. The number Gobu mentioned made Li Meng grin. Not bad, good job. Only 33 male lizardmen had died. Such a loss was within Li Meng's acceptable range. Gobu chuckled, his gaze greedily eyeing the plump female lizardmen. Boss, you look. Seeing Gobu lecherous expression, Li Meng knew what was on his mind. Now's not the time for that. Get them to work. Gobu, take your underlings to catch fish. Bring the female lizardmen along. They're good swimmers and can effectively assist you. As for the male lizardmen, have them work on building the wooden fortress. With more and more lizardmen arriving here, the demand for food would only increase. Li Meng was uneasy about letting the lizardmen go out hunting. If they took the opportunity to escape, it would be a loss. Losing one or two didn't matter, but a mass escape was unacceptable. Seeing Gobu Zhang's reluctant face, Li Ming's expression turned cold. What? Do I need to say it again? Gobu Zhang felt a chill under the boss's gaze. Boss, I got it. Instinctive fear made Gobu Zhang's heart race. He took a step back in fear. Turning, he sprinted towards the team coming ashore. Under the Goblins' orders, the Lizardmen team was forcibly split in two. The male Lizardmen wore expressions of anger, but they didn't dare to resist too fiercely. Surrounded by goblins, their wives and children were here too. If a fight broke out, it would affect their families. Thus, with the arrival of the Black-Scale tribe Lizardmen, the island became livelier. The abundance of manpower made the island bustling. With the male Lizardmen, the goblins started slacking off, transforming from laborers to overseers. The next afternoon, on the busy construction site of the island, a goblin was slacking off. It lay leisurely on a log, basking in the sun. Though goblins didn't like sunlight, even the most hated sunlight was better than hard labor. A passing big goblin gave a kick. The kick flipped it over, it's but in the air. Don't slack off. The boss's boss is watching. The big goblin scolded. This startled the goblin, making it jump up in fright. It smiled obsequiously, kneeling at the big goblin's feet. Boss, I wasn't slacking. I was watching these male Lizardmen work. The big goblin glanced around. Indeed, there were many male Lizardmen working nearby. You're not lying to me, are you? The big goblin looked down at the goblin at its feet. The goblin quickly shook its head. No, I wouldn't dare. The goblin nodded vigorously. The big goblin grinned at its underling. Suddenly, it swung its right hand, slapping the goblin's face. Ouch! The goblin cried out in pain. Its body flew several meters, rolling on the ground. You think I'm stupid? I'm a big goblin. You're slacking off. Now get to work. The big goblin glared angrily at the fallen goblin underling. Though its face hurt, the goblin scrambled up in a panic. It ran towards the working team, stumbling along the way. This scene was witnessed by the surrounding male Lizardmen. They were quite pleased to see the goblins fighting among themselves. What are you looking at? Get to work. Seeing the male Lizardmen watching, the big goblin roared. Though the male Lizardmen couldn't understand the goblin language, they could sense the big goblin's reprimand from its demeanor. The nearby Lizardmen quickly buried themselves in work. Yes, the big goblin is quite obedient. This scene was observed by Li Ming from a distance. Standing on the shore, Li Ming nodded repeatedly. He was very satisfied with the big goblin's performance. The higher the rank of a goblin, the smarter it was. Ordinary goblins were like big fools who couldn't focus. Though they were obedient, they were easily distracted by other things. Out of his sight, they would have a tendency to slack off. If you send a goblin somewhere, it will go. But when it will arrive is uncertain. Various things along the way will delay its arrival at the destination. Boss, Gobu-E is back. At this moment, a goblin hurriedly ran over. Oh, finally back. The wooden fortress was located north of the central part of the northern swamp. It was closer to the Black-Scale tribe and farther from the Gray-Scale tribe. It was normal for Gobu-E to return later than Gobu Zhang. Meanwhile, deep in the swamp southwest of the island, a large group of figures was approaching the island where the wooden fortress was located under the scorching sun. What are the goblins doing? It looks like they're building a new tribe. Can goblins survive in the swamp? I don't know. The damp environment might be too much for them. From a distance, the Lizardmen could see the wooden structures on the island. Although not very large in scale, the construction scene was quite impressive. From afar, one could see goblins and Lizardmen working hard. It seems like people from the Gray-Scale tribe. The characteristics of the Lizardmen from the three tribes were still quite distinct. The Lizardmen from the White-Scale tribe had scales leaning towards gray-white. The Lizardmen from the Gray-Scale tribe had scales leaning towards dark gray. And the Lizardmen from the Black-Scale tribe had scales leaning towards dark black. Are people from the Gray-Scale tribe here too? This discovery caused a commotion among the Gray-Scale tribe Lizardmen. They had been brought here by the goblins, their fate uncertain. The presence of the Black-Scale tribe Lizardmen at least proved they were safe. Many anxious lizard men relaxed their tense expressions upon receiving this news. Half an hour later, the grand procession landed from the west shore. Gobu-e, you're too slow. I came back ages ago. As soon as it landed, Gobu-e saw the last person it wanted to see. It was Gobu-zhang, a big goblin, walking over with a mocking smile. I was farther away. What's there to be proud of? Gobu-e snorted coldly, ignoring Gobu-zhang. It gazed towards the flat island. The boss is over there. Gobu-zhang grinned, moving his body aside a bit. It had intentionally blocked the direction where the boss was, just to make Gobu-e unable to find the boss. As Gobu-zhang moved aside, Gobu-e immediately found the boss. Seeing this, Gobu-e glared at Gobu-zhang. It hurriedly ran towards the direction where the boss was. Boss, I'm back. Gobu-e ran up to the boss with a fawning expression. Brought them all back. Li Meng's gaze turned towards the lizardmen team not far away. Gobu-e grinned, nodding. Not a single one missing. Brought all the grayscale tribe lizardmen over. Li Meng nodded in satisfaction. Very good. Well done. It seemed that Gobu-e's operation went smoothly. The lizardmen left behind in the black-scale tribe had never seen goblins. Their resistance was inevitable. But the grayscale tribe was different. The grayscale tribe had only submitted after the goblins attacked their doorstep. The lizardmen left behind in the grayscale tribe had all seen goblins. They had also witnessed the goblins' strength firsthand, so they wouldn't easily resist. With Gobu-e bringing back the grayscale tribe lizardmen. In the following days, the island where the wooden fortress was located became even more lively. As the population increased, the demand for food grew. Although goblins could eat once and not be hungry for 3 days, the lizardmen couldn't manage that. To meet the food needs of over 2,000 people, the lizardmen and goblins split into 2 groups. The male lizardmen were responsible for building the wooden fortress. 2/3 of the goblins and 2/3 of the female lizardmen went out hunting. The remaining goblins stayed to guard the wooden fortress. The remaining female lizardmen were responsible for looking after the lizardmen young. Under Li Meng's command, everything proceeded in an orderly manner. Time passed bit by bit, day after day. It was another new day in the morning. Off, yes, that's the spot. On the north shore of the island, Li Meng was directing the lizardmen to build a wooden wall. The fact that the goblin soldier could communicate with the lizardmen was no longer surprising to them. Being able to communicate wasn't a bad thing. With communication, they could know what they should do. Boss. At this moment, a goblin hurriedly ran over from afar. It ran while shouting loudly. The loud calls caught the attention of many lizardmen. Soon, the goblin, panting heavily, ran up to Li Meng. Boss, something's wrong. We got trouble. Trouble? What happened? Li Meng looked down at the panting goblin underling beside him. Facing the boss's gaze, the panting goblin shrank its neck. It instinctively took a step back. It's the Swamp Crocodile King. That guy's really strong. We can't beat it. Swamp Crocodile King? Li Meng's eyes lit up with interest. Let's go take a look. Li Meng grabbed the goblin underling by the scruff. Like picking up a chick, he held the goblin underling in his hand. Li Meng turned and dashed out, sprinting across the island. His speed was so fast, it was like a gust of wind blowing past. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared into the distance. Boss, my head hurts. Amidst the goblin's loud cries, Li Meng leaped near the water's edge, heading straight for the water. He crossed dozens of meters before landing heavily on the water's surface. As soon as he hit the water, the surface instantly froze. On the water, Li Meng continued to sprint. His speed was so fast, the ice path on the water extended northward at a visible pace. This scene was witnessed by the goblins on the island. The boss is amazing. The goblins on the island exclaimed in awe. Isn't he? A goblin excitedly patted the shoulder of its companion. Due to using too much force, the goblin whose shoulder was patted fell to the ground. Damn, you hit me? I didn't, I just patted you. You did hit me. I didn't. You did, Gobu-jiao, you're asking for it. The goblin that got up lunged, tackling the other to the ground. No, I didn't. You're the one asking for it. The 2 goblins started wrestling on the ground. This caught the attention of nearby goblins. They gathered around to watch the commotion. 3 hours later, at the edge of a body of water. "The boss is here, the boss is here." From a distance, Li Ming saw a group of goblins on a small island. The island wasn't large, about 200 square meters. The highest point above the water was no more than a meter. Seeing the boss arrive, the goblins on the island cheered. Seeing this, Li Ming ran towards the island. When he was still more than 50 meters away from the island, Li Ming leaped into the air. Like a grasshopper, he landed on the island with a thud. The towering figure exuded an overwhelming presence, causing the surrounding goblins and lizardmen to retreat continuously. Li Ming set down the goblin underling in his hand, his gaze sweeping across the waters before him. There was a scent of blood. Faint, but it was the scent of lizardman blood. "Boss, it's in the deep water ahead." 2 female lizardmen who went in to drive the fish were eaten. Upon hearing this, Li Ming narrowed his eyes slightly, his gaze fixed on the dark waters in front of him. No wonder he could smell the faint scent of lizardman blood. It seemed that even the swamp wasn't an absolutely safe place for lizardmen. Hunting outside also came with dangers. While hunting, one could also become the prey. After a while, Li Ming withdrew his gaze. He glanced at the female lizardmen on either side. Finally, he locked onto a relatively plump female lizardman. Li Ming walked toward it. No. The female lizardman seemed to realize what Li Ming intended to do. It shook its head in terror, stepping back repeatedly. Li Ming grinned, advancing toward it. Reaching out with his right hand, Li Ming grabbed the shoulder of the female lizardman. Then, with force, he threw it toward the deep water. "Ah!" A terrified scream echoed. The female lizardman flew out. The immense force sent the female lizardman flying over 100 meters. Plop! The female lizardman plunged into the water. A massive column of water splashed up. The female lizardman on the shore looked at the goblin soldier in fear, afraid they would become the next bait. Li Ming switched the rod to his left hand, waving the big iron rod with his right. At this moment, the female lizardman in the water was thrashing violently. The impact of entering the water left the female lizardman in a semi-conscious state. Her body instinctively struggled in the water. Her struggle caught the attention of a massive creature in the water. Looking down from the sky, a gigantic shadow appeared beneath the female lizardman. "Ah, found you!" Li Ming on the shore suddenly let out a wild laugh. His figure flashed, shooting out like a cannonball. Stepping on the water, the surface instantly froze. Running on the water, Li Ming plunged one end of the big iron rod into the water and lifted it upward. White mist billowed out, rolling forward. Where it passed, the water's surface froze instantly. In the blink of an eye, 100-meter radius centered around the female lizardman was frozen. Boom! At the moment the water surface froze, the ice layer where the female lizardman was shattered with a roar. A massive, menacing mouth broke through the ice. The female lizardman fell into the gaping maw along with the shattered ice. Ha. Just wanted you to show yourself. Li Ming grinned menacingly, his figure flashing. Bang! The immense force from his foot shattered the ice beneath him. Li Ming's robust body shot out like an arrow. In an instant, he crossed dozens of meters, kicking the giant mouth's chin. Bang! A muffled sound echoed. A wave of air exploded. The ice shattered, and a massive figure was kicked out of the water by Li Ming. It was a swamp crocodile, magnified 5 times, the swamp crocodile king. It was nearly 40 meters long, its massive mouth capable of swallowing a small car whole. Freeze! Landing on the ice, Li Ming raised his right foot high and stomped down. Billowing white mist howled out, transforming into a wave that swept across a large area of water. Where the white mist passed, everything was frozen. The swamp crocodile king, kicked into the air, hadn't yet fallen back into the water. The water surface beneath, it was already frozen. Suddenly reaching out with his left hand, Li Ming caught the falling female lizardman. Meanwhile, several dozen meters away, the massive swamp crocodile king crashed heavily onto the ice. It slid across the ice for dozens of meters before coming to a stop. Swamp Crocodile King Elite. Level 31. Strength 617. Defense 711. Agility 458. Magic 391. Water Bullet LV7. How can this guy's attributes be so high? The information about the Swamp Crocodile King left Li Ming with a look of surprise. At level 31, it had such terrifying attributes. Could it be related to the elite suffix? Li Ming thought of a possibility. Perhaps after reaching level 100, one becomes elite level, and the level starts increasing from 0 again. At this moment, the female lizard man held by Li Ming woke up. She was still a bit dazed, shaking her head. Li Ming released her. Go back to the shore. The voice in her mind made the female lizard man pause. She came to her senses, quickly turning and limping toward the direction of the island. At this time, not far away, the Swamp Crocodile King flipped over and got up. Roar! It turned around, opening its massive mouth to roar at Li Ming. It was angry, very angry. Its huge pupils were blood red. Facing the Swamp Crocodile King's roar, Li Ming grinned. He swung the big iron rod, pointing it at the Swamp Crocodile King. Since coming to this world, he hadn't had a proper fight. The Swamp Crocodile King wasn't too strong, but it wasn't weak either. It was an excellent sparring partner. Come on, big crocodile. The Swamp Crocodile King's huge pupils narrowed. Ugly goblin born from a groundhog's belly. You're courting death. The Swamp Crocodile King roared again. Li Ming grinned menacingly, provocatively swinging the big iron rod. The heart speech skill was indeed useful. Even if the magical beast didn't have high intelligence, communication was possible. To outsiders, the Swamp Crocodile King was just roaring. But in Li Ming's ears, it was a language. To be precise, the Swamp Crocodile King's roar contained its thoughts. Goblin, I'll turn you into minced meat. The Swamp Crocodile King opened its massive mouth. It seemed to be laughing at Li Ming's overconfidence. In the Swamp Crocodile King's massive mouth, blue magical light flickered. A mass of water balls surged forth. The Swamp Crocodile King opened its mouth and spat, a massive water ball shooting out. Its speed was so fast that it made a sharp whistling sound as it cut through the air. Facing the incoming water ball, Li Ming let out a loud shout. Swinging the big iron rod, his body shot out like a cannonball. At the moment of charging out, a wave of air exploded. The ice beneath his feet cracked with a caw sound. Li Ming transformed into an arrow, sprinting across the ice. Swinging the big iron rod, he heard a whoosh. A transparent wind blade shot out. A visible wave of wind swept around. In the sky, dozens of meters away, the wind blade collided with the water ball. The water ball shattered with a roar. Turning into countless raindrops, it fell onto the ice. This scene left the Swamp Crocodile King momentarily stunned. It hadn't expected the water bullet to be broken. Roar! The Swamp Crocodile King let out an angry roar. Its massive mouth opened even wider. Finally, blue magical light flickered. One water ball after another swept toward Li Ming like machine gun bullets. What the hell, are you kidding me? The terrifying speed of the water bullet release startled Li Ming. His wind blade couldn't be released as quickly as the Swamp Crocodile King's. Running on the ice, Li Ming dove to the left. 2 water bullets narrowly grazed past his feet. Boom! 2 water bullets collided with the ice layer one after the other. A loud rumble echoed. That section of ice shattered instantly. 2 massive water columns shot up into the sky. Damn, water bullets are kinetic attacks. Li Ming rolled on the ice layer, getting back on his feet, and continued running. Glancing back, the terrifying power of the water bullets gave him a fright. If he tried to block with the big iron rod, it definitely wouldn't hold. Li Ming dashed left and right on the ice layer. 1 water bullet after another struck the ice behind him. Water columns shot up into the sky. Luckily, the bullet speed isn't too fast. While dodging the water bullets, Li Ming still had time for random thoughts. Since water bullets are kinetic attacks, their flight speed isn't too fast. Li Meng seemed a bit disheveled on the ice layer, but in reality, he was quickly closing the distance to the swamp crocodile king. Crack! Li Meng stomped hard while sprinting. The ice layer shattered, sinking deeply into the water. His body shot up like an arrow, heading straight for the swamp crocodile king. Seeing Li Meng leap towards it, a hint of mockery flashed in the swamp crocodile king's eyes. It raised its head, opening its massive mouth towards Li Meng. A water ball emerged, spinning rapidly. Facing the swamp crocodile king's confident strike, Li Meng grinned fiercely. He hurled the big iron rod with force at the swamp crocodile king. With a boom, a shockwave exploded. The big iron rod turned into a black streak, crossing dozens of meters in an instant. It plunged straight into the swamp crocodile king's mouth. Shill! The big iron rod drove deep into the swamp crocodile king's throat, almost completely embedded. Ugh! The swamp crocodile king let out a mournful cry. It shook its head, swaying its massive body, trying to dislodge the big iron rod from its mouth. But it was futile. The big iron rod was firmly lodged in its throat. Ahaha, die! Li Meng landed heavily on the ice layer. With a crack, that section of ice shattered with a boom. The LV-1 ice element control was still too weak. This resulted in the ice layer not being strong enough, just a bit tougher than natural ice. As soon as he landed, Li Meng dashed out again. With a quick step, he closed in on the swamp crocodile king. He swung his right fist, punching the swamp crocodile king in the face. The swamp crocodile king's massive body staggered. The immense force sent it rolling on the ice layer. The big iron rod in its throat seemed to cause it great discomfort. It couldn't even make a sound. Li Meng waved his hand, and a shockwave exploded in front of him. A wind blade shot out, heading straight for the swamp crocodile king. The distance of a few meters was within reach. The wind blade struck the swamp crocodile king's scales with a... The wind blade dissipated upon impact with the swamp crocodile king's body. Impressive defense. It's known that a single strike of the wind blade can cut through a tree that takes 2 people to encircle. Yet it couldn't leave any mark on the swamp crocodile king. Hey, big crocodile, want to be my underling? Looking at the massive creature before him, Li Meng felt tempted. Having the swamp crocodile king as a subordinate would make many things easier. He could roam the swamp freely. Even if the Black Mountain Tribe's army came, it wouldn't matter. With the swamp crocodile king's assistance, the Black Mountain Tribe was nothing to worry about. Could this be the turning point to change the future? Li Meng grinned, feeling hopeful. But then again, something seemed off. There didn't seem to be any information about the swamp crocodile king in the future timeline. What's going on here? Dream on, you monster born from a groundhog's belly. The swamp crocodile king got up. It endured the discomfort and pain in its throat, charging at Li Meng with its head. All right, it seems even magical beasts harbor animosity towards goblins. Li Meng's figure flickered as he leaped back. He extended his hands, grabbing the swamp crocodile king's massive tail. Then I'll just have to smash you to death. Li Meng exerted his strength, using his waist and hips. He swung the swamp crocodile king's massive tail. The swamp crocodile king's huge body was lifted by Li Meng and slammed heavily onto the ice layer. Boom! The thick ice layer shattered into pieces. The swamp crocodile king was dazed from the impact. The big iron rod in its throat seemed even more firmly lodged. Seeing the ice layer's fragility, Li Meng grinned. He dragged the swamp crocodile king's massive tail towards a nearby island. See that piece of land? There's a sharp rock on it. I'll smash your body against that rock until you're a bloody mess. After you die, I'll get you open, and the goblins will eat you clean, not even leaving the stuff in your stomach. Letting you die just like that would be too easy. Li Meng turned back, giving the swamp crocodile king a sinister smile. How about this? I won't let you die. I'll make you watch as the goblins gut you open. I'll keep you alive as long as possible, watching as your body is devoured bit by bit. That would be quite interesting. This wasn't a threat. It was Li Meng's final offer for the swamp crocodile king to stay alive. Submission was best, but if not, it didn't matter. The swamp crocodile king's corpse was a valuable asset. Gobuda, and Gobuchong had limited potential. They needed the meat of high-level magical beasts to evolve. Li Meng intended to nurture these three underlings. Li Meng's intimidation finally revealed a hint of fear in the Swamp Crocodile King's eyes. Death wasn't terrifying. A fate worse than death was. You're strong. I can submit to you, but I have one condition. Li Meng thought the Swamp Crocodile King would hold out a bit longer. After all, it's a magical beast, and magical beasts aren't known for their brains. If everything could be resolved through communication, why would humans have so many wars? Unexpectedly, the Swamp Crocodile King didn't resist at all. As soon as Li Meng finished his threats, it conceded. Li Meng paused, stopping his advance. Standing on the ice layer, Li Meng grinned. Having conditions was good. It meant the deal was done. Go ahead. What's your condition? Li Meng released the Swamp Crocodile King's tail. He turned to face the Swamp Crocodile King, which had regained its freedom and was lying on the ice layer. I don't want to mate with goblins. I don't want to give birth to little goblins. The Swamp Crocodile King turned painfully, staring straight at Li Meng. The Swamp Crocodile King's condition left Li Meng speechless. It seemed even magical beasts couldn't stand goblins. All right, it's a deal. Open your mouth. What kind of condition was that? With the Swamp Crocodile King's massive size, anyone would be like a toothpick in the ocean. Even the big goblin leader wouldn't be suitable. Boss, it's a deal. You can't go back on your word. What, you don't trust me? I don't trust goblins. Li Meng grinned and slapped the Swamp Crocodile King's jaw. I am indeed a goblin, but I'm a goblin who keeps promises. The Swamp Crocodile King hesitantly opened its massive mouth. Though not very smart, it knew what it needed to do to survive. With a smile, Li Meng climbed into the Swamp Crocodile King's mouth without hesitation. He crawled along its tongue and into its throat. There, he found the big iron rod lodged in the sticky throat. Ah! The Swamp Crocodile King let out a pained roar on the ice. After a while, Li Meng emerged from the Swamp Crocodile King's mouth, holding the big iron rod. It stinks. The foul stench on him made Li Meng roll his eyes. Li Meng thrust the big iron rod into the ice. With a crack, the ice shattered into pieces. Li Meng lunged forward and plunged into the water with a splash. The massive body of the Swamp Crocodile King followed him into the water. This scene was witnessed by the goblins and lizard men not far away. When they saw their boss crawl into the Swamp Crocodile King's mouth, the goblins were startled. But soon, their boss emerged from the Swamp Crocodile King's mouth again. They were bewildered, not understanding what had happened over there. At that moment, the water near the shore began to ripple. A shadow appeared beneath the water. Suddenly, their boss's head emerged from the water. First the head, then the neck, then the body, and finally the feet. And beneath his feet was the enormous Swamp Crocodile King. Let's go, it's time to head back. Li Meng leaped off the Swamp Crocodile King's head. He landed steadily on the island. The lizardmen and goblins on the island looked at the Swamp Crocodile King in terror. They retreated repeatedly, filled with fear. But the Swamp Crocodile King did not attack them. Its massive body crawled in the shallow water, following behind their boss. The boss has a new underling. Goblins may be foolish, but they're not stupid. The goblins quickly realized what had happened. The goblins on the island showed excitement, cheering loudly. The female lizardmen nearby looked on in astonishment. The Swamp Crocodile King actually submitted to that goblin? The Swamp Crocodile King was the most terrifying lordly magical beast in the northern swamp. Though only a 5th-tier magical beast, its strength surpassed most 6th-tier magical beasts. In the northern swamp, the Swamp Crocodile King was the true king of the swamp. And now, the king of the northern swamp had submitted to that goblin soldier. Amidst the cheers of the goblins on the island, Li Meng gradually moved away with the Swamp Crocodile King. Boss, you can sit on my back. It'll be faster. You're too slow. The Swamp Crocodile King, following Li Meng, let out a dissatisfied grunt. The boss's speed was too slow, making it uncomfortable to follow. Li Meng stopped, turned around, and walked toward the Swamp Crocodile King. Then he climbed up its leg onto its back. As soon as Li Ming sat down, the swamp crocodile king accelerated. It crawled through the shallow water with a splash. Water splashed everywhere as it moved. Sitting on the swamp crocodile king's back, Li Ming looked up at the sky. The sun hadn't set, but the half-moon was already high in the sky. From now on, I'll call you Yue. The word Yinhui sounds like crocodile, and the swamp crocodile king was female. Li Ming thought Yue was a fitting name for the swamp crocodile king. Boss, you can call me whatever you like. And so, the swamp crocodile king got a new name. Yue, can you still evolve? Yue looked large, and indeed it was. It was nearly 45 meters long, with a shoulder height of about 4 meters. But its tail accounted for almost half of its body length. I can. Consuming magic crystals can make me stronger. When a magical beast in the forest dies, the magic crystal is the first thing to be consumed. This is a magical beast's innate ability. Low-tier magic crystals probably won't be much use to you. Yue was a 5th-tier magical beast, so 1st and 2nd-tier magic crystals likely wouldn't have much effect. They're useful, just need to eat more. Quantity leads to qualitative change. Li Ming thought of the magic crystals embedded in the rock walls of the goblin nest. Though most were 1st-tier magic crystals, they were perfect for feeding Yue. Yue, why do you only have one magic skill? Yue was indeed strong, but it only had one magic skill. Li Ming instinctively thought Yue's talent wasn't great. Boss, I'm a genius. I've never seen another of my kind who can use magic. Only one magic skill, and it's called a genius? Sitting on Yue's back, Li Ming rolled his eyes. But then again, magical beasts with magic skills were indeed rare. Most magical beasts only had enhancement skills. Their combat style leaned more towards melee. Several hours later, at the wooden fortress island. Not good. A big crocodile is coming. A panicked shout suddenly rang out from the north shore of the island. A goblin ran towards the boss as if it had seen a ghost. Nearby goblins looked over. At a glance, the massive creature from the depths of the northern swamp made their faces change. Not good, big crocodile, big crocodile. A single stone stirred up 1,000 waves. The goblins were in chaos, running around the island. They wanted to flee, but were afraid. They ran a distance and then ran back. More goblins ran towards their boss. What are you afraid of? Stay by the water. Goblin strode over due to the commotion on the north shore. It kicked over a loudly shouting goblin. The boss's arrival gave the nearby goblins a backbone. They gathered behind Goblin. It's not a big crocodile, it's a big crocodile. It's the boss's boss. It's the boss's boss. A brave goblin at the water's edge cheered, waving its arms. What are you talking about? Goblin was confused by it. Looking into the distance, Goblin's pupils contracted. It was a big crocodile, it was the boss. The boss is riding the big crocodile back. Standing by the water, Goblin shouted excitedly. Only then did the goblins on the island notice the boss on the big crocodile's back. The boss's boss is back. The boss is back. The goblins hurried to the shore, shouting excitedly. The commotion on the north shore caught the lizardmen's attention. They looked curiously towards the depths of the northern swamp. At that sight, all the lizardmen showed expressions of disbelief. In the depths of the northern swamp, a massive swamp crocodile was approaching. Its movements while running were loud, with water splashing everywhere. Is that the swamp crocodile king? How could the swamp crocodile king submit to a goblin? Only the swamp crocodile king had such a massive size. The lizardmen living in the swamp were familiar with the swamp crocodile king. The swamp crocodile king was the sacrificial beast worshipped by the 3 lizardman tribes of the northern swamp. Feeding oneself to the crocodile was the final fate of all elderly lizardmen. The sacrificial beast, though dangerous, is also the guardian deity of the northern swamp. With the swamp crocodile king around, no other high-level magical beast would dare enter the northern swamp. But today, they witnessed the swamp crocodile king becoming a mount for the goblins. This is impossible, absolutely impossible. How could this happen? The lizardmen found it hard to accept that mere goblins could achieve such a feat. Mere goblins had managed to subdue the swamp crocodile king. Goblin, Goblin. As Li Ming rowed Yue closer to the island, the goblins on the shore excitedly shouted in unison. They looked at the boss on the back of the giant crocodile with nothing but fervor in their eyes. Hearing the unified shouts of the goblin underlings on the shore, Li Ming grinned. He loved the fervent cheers of the goblin underlings. Under their fervent gaze, Li Ming felt a very strong sensation. It was as if some power within him was awakening, and that power was gradually making him stronger. Amidst the attention of the crowd, Li Ming rowed the giant swamp crocodile king ashore. The goblins on the shore looked in awe at Yue, who resembled a mountain of flesh. Though they shouted fervently, their instincts drove them to step back repeatedly. Li Ming stood up from Yue's back. He raised a big iron rod high with his right hand. Ha ha ha! Li Ming burst into loud laughter. His booming laughter echoed across the island. The goblin shouts immediately changed. All the goblins began laughing, ha 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 loudly. Ha ha ha! The goblins on the shore surrounded Yue, laughing wildly. Their laughter was so joyful, with a hint of madness. Some goblins were so amused they rolled on the ground. Others clutched their bellies, laughing heartily. Yue, looking at the small goblins around, had a trace of confusion in its eyes. It didn't understand what these goblins were doing. The lizardmen not far away silently watched and listened. The size of the crocodile on the shore confirmed the identity of the swamp crocodile king. After a while, the laughter on the north shore of the island subsided. Li Ming leaped off Yue, landing steadily on the ground. He patted Yue's massive forelimb. Yue, go play nearby. The goblins and lizardmen are my underlings. Don't harm them. Yue's enormous eyes glanced at its boss beside it. Then it turned its massive body and slowly crawled into the water. Boss, you're amazing. Seeing the big crocodile leave, Gobu Zhang quickly ran forward. But Gobu Sheng was even faster. Gobu Sheng slid to his knees, bowing at Li Ming's feet. He kissed the top of Li Ming's foot with a fawning expression. Boss, you're so strong. I'm about to explode. As he spoke, Gobu Sheng's body suddenly shivered. Li Ming, speechless, kicked Gobu Sheng over. All right, get to work. The kicked-over goblin scrambled away. The surrounding goblins also dispersed in a hurry. And so, the once noisy island became relatively quiet. In the following days, everything in the northern swamp remained as usual. The construction of the wooden fortress proceeded in an orderly fashion. Every day, noticeable changes occurred on the island. The wooden walls surrounding the island grew visibly. Time passed bit by bit, day by day. Another new day dawned, with the sun shining brightly over the northern swamp. In the forest on the eastern shore of the northern swamp, a large area of trees near the shore had been felled. Many lizardmen and goblins were working in the forest. Though the two races couldn't communicate verbally, their long-term cooperation had fostered a sense of understanding. Goblins excelled at chopping, so they handled the logging work. Lizardmen, with their strong arms, managed the sawing work, processing the fallen trees into logs. Grayscale, have you found out anything? In a messy clearing, Grayscale and Blackscale were sawing wood. The saw made a panting sound as they pulled it back and forth. Grayscale glanced at the western swamp and shook his head. The goblins won't let us leave here. We can't get any news from outside. Blackscale's face darkened, remaining silent. It had been almost a month, and even a fool could sense something was wrong. So much wood was being transported to the depths of the swamp. The goblins are definitely up to something secretive. Endure it. The rotation period is almost here. Grayscale's reassurance made Blackscale take a deep breath. Yes, the rotation period was almost here. By then, they would be free. Once they returned to the tribe, things would be much easier. Blackscale, do you think the Black Mountain tribe will come? Grayscale's expression was complicated. He hoped the Black Mountain tribe would send an army to support the northern swamp. Yet he also didn't want the Black Mountain tribe to appear. The goblins in the forest were simply too powerful. If they failed, there would be no space for lizardmen to survive in the goblin forest. They will come, they definitely will. Blackscale was certain about the arrival of the Black Mountain tribe. Goblin Forest, Northern Swamp, Wooden Fortress. Time flew by, and 2 months passed quietly. 2 months of construction had made the island in the swamp disappear. In its place stood a massive wooden fortress. The wooden fortress stretched about 900 meters north to south, and about 700 meters east to west. A nearly 7-meter-high wooden wall stood in the swamp. 15-meter-high watchtowers dotted the wooden wall. A watchtower stood every 50 meters. Looking at the wooden wall, one could see many goblins standing guard and patrolling, though the watchtowers were currently empty. It wouldn't be long before a 3-bow ballista was placed on them. Another new day dawned, with the sun shining brightly over the northern swamp. On the watchtower of the wooden wall on the northern shore of the wooden fortress, Gobu, he hasn't returned yet. Standing on the watchtower, Li Ming gazed at the space within the wooden fortress. After 2 months of construction, the wooden fortress was 80% complete. Looking inside the fortress, various wooden houses stood. There were dwellings, places to live. There were warehouses, places to store miscellaneous items. To facilitate water access, 2 canals were dug within the fortress. Due to the humid air of the swamp, goblins disliked such an environment. After this event, the wooden fortress wouldn't house a large military presence. Only a small number of goblins would be stationed there. Boss, Gobu, he hasn't returned yet. Gobu Sheng responded to the boss, glancing southward at the swamp. Gobu Sheng and Gobu Zhang stood behind Li Ming. 5 days ago, Li Ming had sent Gobu Yi to the White-Scale tribe. Since the White-Scale tribe only had women and children left, Li Ming wasn't in a hurry to bring the lizard men for the White-Scale tribe over. Li Ming turned to look at the southern swamp, deep in thought. The 3-bow ballista was on its way, arriving in half a month. The Black Mountain tribe's army would take at least 2 to 3 months to arrive. The timing was still sufficient, no need to rush. The future predicted by the simulated life didn't have time information, but the Black Mountain tribe's arrival in the northern swamp was after the rotation period. The timing could rough. The very next afternoon, Gobu Yi returned. Accompanying him were hundreds of lizardman women and children. The arrival of the White-Scale tribe's lizardmen caused quite a commotion in the wooden fortress. It's the White-Scale tribe. What exactly do the goblins want by gathering us here? A long line of lizardmen entered the wooden fortress through the south gate. This caught the attention of the lizardmen from the other 2 tribes. For a moment, the lizardmen in the fortress were abuzz with speculation. Now that all 3 tribes were present, it was hard not to wonder what the goblins' true intentions were. Boss, I'm back. On the other side, Gobu Yi cheerfully climbed up a watchtower. From afar, he had already spotted the boss on the watchtower. Hearing Gobu Yi's panting voice behind him, Li Ming grinned. Very good, Gobu Yi, Gobu Zhang, Gobu Sheng, I'll leave this place to you. Keep a close watch on those lizard men. With the rotation period approaching, he needed to go back and make some preparations. Boss, where are you going? Gobu Yi asked curiously. Li Ming turned to look at the stretch of towering wooden structures within the fortress. Of course, I'm returning to the tribe. Li Ming had initially thought of having them stockpile more food, but after some thought, he gave up. The food brought back by the hunting party was all carcasses. At most, they could be stored for 3 days before starting to rot. Goblins, with their strong digestive systems, didn't mind. Not just 3 days, even highly decomposed, maggot-infested meat was edible for them. In this world, goblins were akin to Earth's hyenas. But the lizardmen's digestive systems weren't as robust. They needed fresh food. The methods for making jerky and dried fish would have to wait. In the future, if the tribe wanted to go on expeditions, they couldn't afford to stop and hunt along the way. That would be too time-consuming. They needed a type of food that could be stored for a long time and was easy to carry. I'll be back soon. With that, Li Ming turned and leaped down from the watchtower. The ground was soft, and Li Ming landed silently from the 15-meter-high watchtower. Landing steadily, Li Ming dashed into the water. Wherever he went, the water beneath his feet froze over. In no time, a path of ice stretched across the swamp's waters, leading into the distance. Heading east, it took Li Ming less than 3 hours to reach the forest on the eastern shore. What took goblins 2 days to traverse, Li Ming accomplished in just 3 hours. His speed was truly astonishing. Li Ming didn't linger in the forest on the eastern shore, continuing upstream. In the afternoon, at the Goblin River within the northern forest. The forest was dim and silent. In the dense goblin forest, survival was an art. To survive, life first had to learn to be silent. Suddenly, a rustling sound came from bush. The leaves swayed slightly. The next moment, a flash of white darted out from the bush. It was a small white rabbit. Judging by its size, the rabbit was just an ordinary animal. It hopped and stopped in front of a colorful mushroom. It sniffed with its nose. The mushroom's enticing aroma made it drool. It opened its mouth to take a bite of the mushroom. But before it could, a shadow flashed past the rabbit in the forest. The little rabbit was lifted into the air. Before it could react, a ferocious mouth bit off its head. The sound of crunching echoed through the forest. The bones are so crunchy. Running through the forest, Li Ming grinned. Compared to magical beasts, ordinary animals were incredibly delicious. Even their bones were crunchy, with a delightful crispness. Hours later, in the forest west of the tribe, a tall green figure emerged from the woods. Not bad. Li Ming, stepping out of the forest, gazed at the distant tribe. Though distant, it was only about 300 meters away. The open space made the tribe look like an island in the forest clearing. Behind the wooden walls, dense trees were visible. The wooden walls encircled the tribe, standing firm on the ground. Looking up at the wooden walls, one could see many green figures standing guard. Every 50 meters, a massive 3-bow ballista could be seen on the watchtowers. The boss is back. The boss is back. Li Ming's appearance caught the attention of the goblins standing guard on the wooden walls. Upon closer inspection, the goblins realized it was indeed their boss. A goblin on the wall shouted loudly. This drew the attention of the other goblins. The drowsy goblins on the wall immediately perked up. Li Ming entered the tribe through the west gate. As soon as he entered, a strong smell of pig manure hit him. Walking through the tribe's forest, Li Ming frowned slightly. It seems Gobuchang needs to move out and establish a pig-raising tribe soon. Li Ming had long planned for this. He didn't want his main base to turn into a cesspool. Even though he had become a goblin in this life, Li Ming still loved cleanliness. The tribe had many dry toilets. Each dry toilet was equipped with a septic tank. Though simple in structure, they effectively processed waste. They only needed to be cleaned every few years. Boss. Before he could leave the forest, Gobu Mo and Gobu Gao hurried over. Boss, you're back. The two big goblins ran up to Li Ming with fawning expressions. Did anything happen in the tribe while I was away? Gobu Mo and Gobu Gao quickly shook their heads. Boss, everything's fine, nothing happened. Gobu Mo replied with a flattering smile. Very good. Go inform Gobu D and Gobu Sure to lead all the goblins to gather at the Throne Tribe. Upon hearing this, the two big goblins' eyes lit up. They turned excitedly and ran out of the tribe's forest, disappearing in no time. Compared to 2 months ago, the tribe hadn't changed much. Aside from the addition of a wooden wall on the perimeter, there were no new buildings within the tribe. As Li Ming walked, he soon arrived at the throne cave. Looking at the familiar building, Li Ming grinned. He thought of Binbin, who liked to guard the entrance. In the future predicted by simulated life, Binbin would bring back a group of ogres to the tribe. This indicated that Binbin had gone to find its own kind. Compared to goblins, Li Ming preferred the simple-minded ogres. Because they were simple, they seemed pure. Once they decided on something, they wouldn't easily change their minds. Ba Ling, I'm back. Li Ming kicked the door open as he reached the entrance. The door swung open with a bang, startling the female lizardmen inside. The female lizardmen were gathered, chatting about something unknown. The familiar, fearsome figure sent them scattering in panic. Li Ming strode into the throne cave. His gaze swept over the female lizardmen. Seeing them, Li Ming's expression turned peculiar. Without the male lizardmen, their lives seemed quite difficult. Each female lizardman's chest was wet. The wooden house was filled with a strong, milky scent. Seeing Bai Ling on the main bed, Li Meng grinned. He walked towards her with large strides. Seeing her master approach, a trace of fear flashed in Bai Ling's eyes. Master, the rotation period is almost here. In a month, the rotation period would arrive. Bai Ling was reminding her master that time was running out. Li Meng, striding to the main bed, did not bully Bai Ling. He climbed onto the bed, turned over, and fell asleep beside Bai Ling. Watching her master sleeping soundly beside her, Bai Ling let out a sigh of relief. The pressure from the goblin before her was growing more intense. Bai Ling, you know about the swamp crocodile king, right? Li Meng, with his eyes closed, suddenly asked. Bai Ling looked down at her master beside her and nodded slightly. The swamp crocodile king is the sacrificial beast we worship. It's inherently ferocious and difficult to communicate with. I promised it various conditions before it agreed to protect the northern swamp. Once high-level magical beasts invade, it will fight. Bai Ling's answer made Li Meng's expression change slightly. So that's how it is. The northern swamp is the territory of the swamp crocodile king. Logically, there shouldn't be any space for lizard men to live. Yet the swamp crocodile king coexisted with the lizard men, although both sides were still in a predator-prey relationship. The swamp crocodile king did not actively attack the lizardman's tribe. Li Meng opened his eyes and turned to look at the curvaceous Bai Ling beside him. Not long ago, I encountered it. It's now my little brother. Named the... That's impossible. Bai Ling's exclamation suddenly echoed in the wooden house. She looked at her master beside her in disbelief. Seeing Bai Ling's slight loss of composure, Li Meng grinned. Nothing is impossible. It's the truth. Bai Ling hesitated, her expression shifting. Though she said it was impossible, Bai Ling still believed it in her heart. Because the goblin beside her had no reason to deceive her. It served no purpose. Bai Ling, do you think the Black Mountain tribe will launch a large-scale invasion of the northern swamp? Upon hearing this, Bai Ling's face turned pale. Her voluptuous body trembled, and she seemed on the verge of collapse. Bai Ling appeared somewhat panicked, lowering her head, not daring to meet Li Meng's gaze. Grinning, Li Meng lay flat on the bed. His hands rested behind his head. I told you, I'm a clever goblin. I know everything. You must be curious why I led those male lizard men to the northern swamp 2 months ago. Bai Ling's body trembled, and she stared intently at her master. A hint of fear flashed in her eyes. She feared hearing news from the goblin beside her that would shatter her. They're all alive. Seeing Bai Ling's expression, Li Meng knew what she was thinking. Li Meng recalled that night. The night the male lizard men of the white scale tribe were hunted to extinction. That night, Bai Ling showed him despair on a lizardman's face. One must know that a lizardman's face is relatively smooth, but discerning changes in expression is still quite difficult. Ooh! Bai Ling took a deep breath. She weakly supported herself on the bed, panting heavily. The intense emotional change left her body limp. She had been truly frightened just now. I built a wooden fortress in the northern swamp. The lizard men from the black scale tribe, gray scale tribe, and white scale tribe have all been relocated to the wooden fortress. This is what I've been doing for the past 2 months. Bai Ling didn't react much to this news. Bai Ling sat up straight. She leaned slightly forward, massaging Li Meng's legs with her hands. Bai Ling's sudden action made Li Meng grin with pleasure. After running around all day, his legs were indeed a bit sore. With Bai Ling's soothing touch, the soreness and numbness felt incredibly comfortable. Since the master has already subdued the swamp crocodile king, there's no need to worry about the threat from the Black Mountain tribe. Bai Ling knew better than anyone the power of the swamp crocodile king. If the swamp crocodile king was willing to accept the master's command, unless the Black Mountain tribe attacked with their entire tribe, they wouldn't be able to do anything about the swamp crocodile king. Does the Black Mountain tribe have any strong warriors? Bai Ling shook her head lightly. I'm not sure. The white scale tribe hasn't had contact with the Black Mountain tribe for a long time. Since Bai Ling said she didn't know, Li Meng didn't ask further. Whether it was true or not didn't matter. What mattered was that Li Meng already knew the outcome. If the Black Mountain tribe had strong warriors, they wouldn't have been forced to summon the barbarian god Aqua. If the invading Black Mountain tribe army had strong warriors, they wouldn't have fled with Bai Ling in such a hurry. Even if there were strong warriors, their strength wouldn't change the course of a war. Time passed little by little, day by day. In the following days, Li Ming didn't go anywhere. He stayed honestly in the tribe. Occasionally, he would visit the carpentry workshop to teach Gobu more carpentry knowledge. He also visited the iron cave a few times. Gobu needed to quickly master the knowledge of smelting high-carbon and low-carbon steel. Without the lizardmen laborers, the iron smelting efficiency in the iron cave was somewhat affected. Gobu had to assign his underlings to mine and chop wood to make charcoal. It wasn't until half a month later that Gobu and Gobu arrived at the tribe one after another. It was another new day, and the time had reached the morning. The tribe was bustling, with goblins shouting chaotically. Nearly 2,000 goblins gathered outside the throne cave. A dense mass of green figures spread across a large area of the forest. In the ranks, there were not only goblins, but also female lizardmen. A year had passed, and only 13 female lizardmen had died. The cause of death couldn't be said to be unrelated to the goblins, but it wasn't entirely their fault either. 11 of them died from illness, and there was a reason for their deaths. Due to continuous pregnancies, their bodies were worn out. This was related to the food provided by the goblins. The main diet of lizardmen is fish. Only fish from the water can provide the nutrients lizardmen need to survive. Just eating magical beast meat couldn't meet their nutritional needs. Over time, they fell ill. One of the remaining 2 was drowned. She accidentally fell and hit her head on a rock while bathing in the river. She passed out immediately and was swept away by the river. By the time the goblins caught up, she had already drowned. The last female lizard man was crushed to death by a falling boulder in the iron cave. Standing at the entrance, Li Ming waved his hand. "Move out," Li Ming shouted, his voice thunderous. In an instant, the tribe echoed with the rumble of footsteps. A dense crowd of goblins swarmed around the lizardmen, heading west. At a glance, it was a forest of long spears, with figures surging. Bai Ling, go now. The lizardmen in the northern swamp need your leadership. Bai Ling silently walked forward behind Li Ming. The goblins waiting outside hurriedly followed, surrounding her as they joined the main force. Watching the goblin underlings moving away from the tribe, Li Ming grinned. With this, it's time to resolve the adventurer incident. Once Gobu and Gobu reached the wooden fortress in the northern swamp. The total garrison at the wooden fortress would reach 4,000. With Yue assisting from the side, it would be absolutely foolproof. System, start the simulated life. Li Ming spread his arms wide and took a deep breath. He believed that the future had already changed. Ever since he led the goblin underlings to the northern swamp, the future had already shifted. Otherwise, he wouldn't have encountered Yue. Simulated life begins. You stand at the entrance of the throne cave, filled with confidence about the future. You head to the goblin nest with a crystal, waiting for the adventurer squad to appear. Gobu and Gobu lead the goblin army to the wooden fortress in the northern swamp. One day, a small human boat sails upstream and lands on the southern shore. One day, the adventurer squad appears in the forest outside the goblin nest. You follow the adventurer squad westward, watching them board a boat and sail downstream. The Black Mountain tribe launches a massive attack, but retreats in panic. Your tribe thrives and grows. Bai Ling unifies the northern swamp lizardmen tribes, naming the new tribe Yu Clan. You withdraw your troops from the wooden fortress, which becomes the Yu Clan stronghold. Your tribe thrives and grows, and you teach the goblins how to make jerky. One day, a pigman tribe squad attacks your hunting party, but the pigman squad is killed. One day, you receive news that the pigman tribe is mobilizing its entire force. You receive news from the Yu Clan in the northern swamp that a large human fleet is sailing upstream along the Goblin River. The Principality of Ilysis's pioneering legion is attacking. Please make the following choice. 1. Gather superior forces to eliminate the threat of the pigmen tribe. 2. Withdraw all goblins from the subtribes and defend the throne tribe's main base. 3. Split forces to guard the U clan and defend together. 4. Gather forces to ambush the human fleet on the northern bank of the Goblin River. The Principality of Ilysis's pioneering legion. Li Meng, sitting at the entrance, bent down and sat on the steps. The adventurers, leaving safely, caused the Principality of Ilysis's army to appear earlier, at least a year and a half earlier than the previous predicted timeline. Each of the 4 options has its pros and cons. The first option requires taking advantage of the time difference. If the pigmen tribe isn't dealt with quickly, the U clan won't be able to receive timely support. Since it's called a pioneering legion, all the barbarians in the Goblin Forest are targets of the human pioneering legion. Li Meng can't guarantee that the human pioneering legion won't attack the U clan. The second option is too passive, although it can repel the pigmen tribe with minimal losses. But option 2 undoubtedly abandons the U clan. The third option tries to have it all, but splitting forces can easily lead to both places being inadequately defended. And the fourth option is too risky. There's a lot of room for maneuver, defending the main base while ambushing the human pioneering legion at a critical point. A slight mistake could lead to a complete collapse. Choose one. The first option is the most stable. Defeat the pigmen tribe in one go and then proceed slowly. Whether it's supporting the U clan or ambushing the human pioneering legion, there's still time. You choose to concentrate superior forces to confront the pigmen tribe. In a forest to the east, your goblin army battles the pigmen tribe. You achieve victory, and the pigmen tribe is repelled. You lead the goblin army to the western forest on the northern bank of the Goblin River in the northern swamp to set up defenses. You attack the Principality of Ilysis's pioneering legion fleet. You achieve victory, but Binbin and Yue die in battle, and your goblin army suffers heavy losses with only 1/10 surviving. The Principality of Ilysis's pioneering legion fleet is completely destroyed, shocking human nations. You lead the remaining goblin army back to the tribe. Your tribe barely survives, but is quickly recovering. One day, a ghost beast man, claiming to be a centurion of the demon tribe, appears outside the west gate of the tribe. It challenges you. Please make the following choice. 1. Accept its challenge. 2. Refuse its challenge. A centurion of the demon tribe? Li Meng, sitting at the entrance, showed a hint of surprise in his eyes. Since there are demons, there must be a demon king. And where there's a demon king, there must be a hero. Li Meng grinned, becoming interested. Option 1. You accept the challenge. You defeat it, and the demon tribe's ghost beast man, Centurion, flees in panic. Your tribe thrives and grows. The deaths of Binbin and Yue make you increasingly resentful of this world, resentful of humans. You unleash immense power, making the female lizard men wail day and night. Your bloodline descendants expand their territory like locusts. Your hunting party begins to attack non-bloodline kin. The rapidly expanding territory gradually borders human lands. Your hunting party starts attacking human villages. One day, you receive news that the Black Mountain tribe has summoned the barbarian god Aqua. The 3-year limit has been reached. As a transmigrator, you have gradually adapted to your new identity, starting your own life in this other world. You are well aware of the harshness of this world, and you strive to become stronger, working tirelessly towards this goal. Simulated life ends. Score 100. Please choose the following rewards. 1. Consume 10 score points for +1 level. 2. Consume 1 score point for +1 attribute. 3. Consume 20 score points for +1 charm. 4. Consume 10 score points to increase Ice Element Control skill level by +1. 5. Consume 10 score points to increase Heart Speech skill level by +1. 6. Consume 10 score points to increase Berserk skill level by +1. Binbin and Yue will die. Li Meng frowned slightly, lying on the ground at the entrance. Looking at the dense canopy, Li Meng's expression was thoughtful. Knowing the fate of Binbin and Yue, Li Meng naturally wouldn't let it happen. From today, He must proceed cautiously. What is the Black Mountain Tribe up to? Thinking of the Black Mountain Tribe, Li Ming felt speechless. He originally thought he had successfully stopped the Black Mountain Tribe from summoning the barbarian god Aqua. Unexpectedly, it all came full circle. His actions only delayed the Black Mountain Tribe's summoning of the barbarian god Aqua. Could it be that the Black Mountain Tribe has encountered an unbeatable enemy again? At this moment, Li Ming realized how troublesome the Black Mountain Tribe was. Sitting up, Li Ming took a deep breath. Forget it. Let's think about which reward to choose. There are 6 reward options in total, and this time the luck is quite good. However, looking at the skills, Li Ming felt helpless again. Among the 3 skills, only Ice Element Control seems somewhat useful. The Berserk skill, although powerful, it can unleash potential, increasing strength several times in a short period. But the side effects are unacceptable to Li Ming. It causes a loss of sanity during Berserk, and the first 3 options can't effectively enhance strength. Choose 4. Consume 90 score points. Increase Ice Element Control skill level by +9. Ice Element Control is now max level,